today's meeting of the Architectural Board of Review in Santa Barbara. This is Monday, June 8th, 2015. And the first order of business is public comment. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak to the board on any item not on today's agenda, please come forward. Okay, see no one, we'll go on to B.
Actually, I'm not familiar with these procedures, but I have a few questions.
Oh, well, come forward then, please.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Have a seat, and we'll put you on a microphone.
All right.
If you could, either one, actually.
Well,
there you go.
Taking this one.
You got it.
So we live at...
your name, please.
my name is Hans van der Weijden.
Okay.
My wife, Candace Savage, and I live on... we own the house on 534 West Junipero Street.
Okay. Now,
Right.
is that next to an item that's on today's agenda?
No, it's across the street.
Okay. Well, but you want to comment on the project that is happening, that is on the agenda?
Yeah, and I thought this was on the agenda.
Let's see. 540 West
Are there more
Pebble.
again, I'm
Yes,
not
it is.
familiar.
It's item 3.
Okay.
So, that's probably at least an hour away, I'm afraid.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. It's
okay.
scheduled for 4:15 to be heard at 4:15, so we won't take it up until that time.
Okay. In that case, I will be back.
And then if you want to speak, there's pink speaker slips
Yeah.
that you fill out. They're right
Yeah.
over there. And if you don't have a pen, we can provide you with one.
Okay.
And then we can make sure that you get a chance to speak for that
Okay.
item.
All right, thank
All
you.
right, thanks. Okay, so we'll go on to approval of the minutes of the ABR for Tuesday, May 26, 2015. And we'll take comments on those minutes first before we take a motion. Does anyone have a comment on item 1? 2? I have a comment on item 2. Number 3, under the motion, on the second sentence there, it should read, 5 board members felt that only a portion of the driveway nearest the street needs to be colored concrete. Okay. Item 3. I have a couple of things under item 3. Number 2, under the motion, relocate the downspout of Unit A on the north elevation to sit against the wall.
Okay.
And number 4, provide a color board that includes, instead of and includes. Okay, item 4, item 5.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
there's a few items on item 5,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, a few of the comments that don't make sense to me.
Right.
So, the first item 1, for
Mm-hmm.
example, restudy the chevron pattern of the arcade. The board would prefer something more traditional. I thought that comment was related to having a pattern on the arcade, period, and that the comment was asking for the exterior paint application to be removed from the arcade.
That was my understanding as well.
Okay.
And so I would, and unfortunately, Scott is not here because he made the motion, but
Neither is Howard, who seconded it.
yeah, but other board members can comment on this. I thought the consensus of the board was that chevron pattern, the proposed blue chevron pattern on the face of the arcade was simply not acceptable.
However, the pattern that was on the interior of the arcade would be acceptable.
Right. So there's another way that gets clarified in number 5. I would have number 5 rewritten to state, in general, painted portions of the proposal which are not on the face or the outer columns of the building are acceptable. And I think there was only one exception to that, and that was some large arcades in one area, or rather chevrons. It was a brown and white chevron that was painted recessed, and Howard made the comment that he thought that was not traditional enough. And maybe that's where number 1 came from.
Yeah, I think it was the one that was recessed.
It was the one that was recessed, right.
In my handwritten notes, I've got the chevron pattern, and the arcade would prefer something more traditional.
Yes, that's the recessed one. That's the brown and white recessed one, so maybe you should add that.
Okay, so restudy the chevron pattern of the arcade. The board would prefer something more traditional. So how do you want to change that one sentence?
Okay, well,
Or you want to leave that, don't you, for the brown and white one?
we can, and so it should read, the chevron pattern.
Brown and white recessed chevron pattern.
Thank you.
The brown.
The brown and white recessed chevron pattern is acceptable, period. But there should also be a statement that the proposed blue chevron pattern on the face of the arcade is not acceptable.
It should be more traditional?
No,
Oh, no.
it was just
Okay.
not acceptable, yeah.
Okay, great.
And then you got what I said about number 5, right? Should I restate that?
Can you read it?
You said in general, the painted portions on
The painted portions of the proposal,
the proposal.
so you can cross out of the mural center,
Okay.
of the proposal which are not on the face or outer columns of the building are acceptable. And then number 7, I don't think we need to say a majority of the board. It could just say the board found the large 5 points logos not acceptable. Yes, Amy?
Majority, so I've found portions of it acceptable.
Well, the reason I'm crossing it out is because any motion that gets approved by the board, it's always a majority. If
Just
it,
crossing it out altogether, is that what you're saying?
no, I'm just crossing out a majority because, in general, every motion that gets passed is a majority of the board. By default, it's a majority, right? So, yeah.
We
Can
would
I
want to
interject?
specify something like this if it was a comment somewhere outside of a motion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Regarding that same item, I thought anytime a logo was incorporated into a paint application, it's considered a sign, and that's not acceptable based on our municipal code. So by that reasoning, it should be removed completely. Or it's unacceptable to use your logo in the...
Yeah. Well, we didn't. I think that was part of our discussion. I don't think it was stated as part of the motion, but that's definitely true, as far as I understand it. Is that that would not be acceptable by code, by municipal code, but.
Then regardless of our motion, it should be stated that it's unacceptable, right?
Yeah. I've just edited it that the large 5-point logo incorporated in the arbor is not acceptable.
Thank you.
Good.
All right.
I was also confused by item 2 there, restudy similar larger murals in the city facing the public way. So is that asking the applicant to study other murals? Or
That's a good point. No,
what
it
was
should,
that about? I don't recall.
right. No, it was restudy similar large murals facing the public way. In the city should be crossed out.
Thank you.
Actually, if we added the word proposed, restudy similar large murals proposed facing the public way.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 6, item 6. Under the motion number 2, I have one comment. It should read, study further recessing the windows, comma, doors, cross out of the project, and the vertical elements facing the street and on the driveway entrance facade to add greater depth to the architecture. Okay. And then I have a question about number 4 for board members. Preserve the existing trees along the west property line to the extent possible. I'm wondering about that phrase. What does that mean?
To the greatest extent possible.
What does that mean?
It means
Get it?
the applicant did not provide arborist report information, so we weren't able to evaluate whether or not they were keeping them or not, and what the state of the existing trees was, what the health of them was. So we asked them to come back with a specific proposal in terms of what they're keeping and what's being removed. It wasn't identified on the plans. We
Okay.
also discussed those trees at the front, the big canaries, are important skyline trees, so we asked them to preserve those to the greatest extent possible
Well, it seems
within
like,
the limits of whatever the health of the tree is.
okay.
Well, insert the greatest extent.
Okay.
I think it's-
It seems like it leaves open the option of them being able to take it out. And from the photographs, it looked like they were very healthy trees. So I just questioned that because they were throwing open the question whether they could be preserved given the construction. But I felt like it should be a condition of the project. But we'll leave it that way since that was the motion. All right. Number 7. Okay, so we need a first and a second for the approval of the minutes.
You're asking for comments, right, about the minutes?
Yes, we just finished number 7.
Right.
Do you,
Well,
do you-
you just asked about number 7, so I have some things about number 7.
oh, okay. Go ahead, please.
So I was opposed, and I had
Here,
right with me. Are we connected now? Okay. Yeah, I was not able to make the findings, and yet it's the way this is written here, it says that were generally met as follows. I had specifically identified A, C, and E as, actually A, B, C, and E as things I could not support.
Which item are you
He's
referring
on
to?
item
Number
7, the last page, page 8.
Last page.
Well, Howard, you opposed, so you, in theory, you're opposed to everything that's,
Well, I was opposed to 4 out of the 5, the 6th being not applicable.
okay.
Is not, so,
And you're on record as being opposed,
yes, but not the
not the specific. So
Right.
in the future, if you want to be specific about that, you should state it
I
at the
did
time of the
actually
motion.
state it. It's in the record, on the record. I identified items 1, 3, and 5, or whatever it was, at the end of the meeting. I'm opposed on the following grounds.
Well, now that I'm looking at this, so it's up to staff whether we want to include that. Okay.
Everything's fine here, it's just that it's not precise.
Okay.
And I think with an opposition like that, it should be for reasons, not just generally.
How would that affect the applicant's response to those comments?
I think if it's appealed, it would affect it. And it is going to be appealed.
Add the reason why he voted against a project, because the reason's not stated.
Mr. Chair, it's been historically our position not to necessarily have a minority opinion, but if you would like the council to know, because it has been appealed, to know specifically why you're objecting to it, we can indicate it. But we don't want a long verbatim
I understand that,
understanding.
yeah.
Just the issues that why you
Okay.
voted against it.
I would just like to say Wittaush opposed for the specific paragraphs,
Those-
and I would clarify that. I can't read over there right now.
Difficulty with making the findings for compatibility.
Right.
Yeah, I think that would be.
And when it goes to council, he can represent that.
You can go there to represent the minority opinion. Again, what we normally would like
It's
is
been
to have
suggested.
one message given to council and not having two opposing views. When there's a split vote, obviously there's more weight there on the minority opinion.
Right.
But one individual coming in to object to the majority board's opinion, I think, is a little undermining
Yeah,
the
I mean,
board's
the-
authority.
The purpose of the board is to come to one decision on any
That's
given
correct.
item.
That's correct. So I think putting something
the
in the
other
minutes.
reasons are that we had 4 people here, which is barely a quorum.
Okay.
And one of the members, I voted against it. So if we'd had 2 other people, there would have been maybe a different result.
Okay.
So I believe Stephanie was gone. It says Stephanie was partially absent. I would
But
like to know
Howard, you
whether that
cannot,
was...
you cannot speculate about what a different result might have been.
Okay, fine. I'm
I'm
just
sorry,
noticing-
I'm sorry, Howard, you just can't. And it's happened before, okay? This is an important point.
It is important because of quorums and because of majorities and all this business that gets passed on.
Yes, but this has happened before where you've gone in front of council or planning commission and stated it could have gone different if different people were there. And I'm just saying that that's not a valid point. We came to
That has never been my-
We came to a consensus in the meeting.
Excuse me.
Can I finish?
Yes.
Can I finish talking?
You may finish.
All right, thanks. We came to a consensus in the meeting. It was voted on. You were an opposed vote. There was 3 for it and 1 against. That's a quorum. That's a vote. Okay, so I'm sorry it didn't go the way you wanted.
The few times that I've appeared before city council, I have never used the would've, should've, could've language. I've simply reported what my viewpoint was. That's what I will do on this case. And in the case of the minutes here, because there was only 4 members voting, and we have a full house of 7, I felt it was rather a skinny approval.
Okay, you're entitled to those feelings.
Okay.
I have a question for staff. What is protocol for this type of instance?
As I indicated to you previously, we don't normally put a minority opinion into the record unless a board member insists that the council be informed of that if they know it's being appealed. In other words, we've added one board member's opposition based on specific reasons if they want to state the reasons. So I think it's appropriate within Mr. Whittosh's rights
think
to
it's
say,
appropriate, too.
this is why I'm opposed to it. So council's aware why the person voted against it. Now, what I'm a little bit more concerned about is that we go up to council with different opinions of the board.
Right.
That, I think this board should decide whether that's appropriate or not.
I feel strongly it's not appropriate. So we can have a discussion about that another time because we've already exceeded amount of time for analysis of the minutes, but I do have one more comment about this motion because I don't think part of the motion was number 1. And the maker of the motion can comment on that. There was no request to
no-
pull back the third floor massing further.
No, there are no
there wasn't. So that should be
comments when
struck.
they made the motion.
Number 1 should be struck.
Well, in my handwritten notes, I have Kirk pull massing in a bit more on third floor.
I made those comments prior to the motion, and then they pointed out to me the dimensions of the actual third floor, and I
Okay.
said, oh, you're right, I withdraw that. I take it back.
Okay,
You remember?
good. That's-
Okay,
Then
thanks.
that's the correction that
Yep.
we need.
All right. So we need a first and a second to approve the minutes, please.
And excuse me, so Howard's comment then, at the end, it's just going to say Whittosh opposed because he could not make the compatibility criteria analysis? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay.
Would anyone like to make a motion for approval of the minutes as amended?
So
I have one other, please go ahead. I have under discussion, I have something else.
Well, if it's under discussion, we can't vote yet.
So,
Make a first and a second, though. Let's get a first and a second. Amy was
Okay,
first,
Second.
seconded
I didn't hear
by
that either.
Courtney. Okay.
so
Under
it's-
discussion,
So, this is a question to Stephanie. Did you leave in the middle of this item? Or did you leave before this item started?
I left in the middle of the
Of the
Item.
item
Yes.
7,
Yes, I made my comments and then I left.
right. So partially absent is
All in
correct.
favor of the motion as, of the minutes as amended, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, Howard's opposed to the minutes. All right, so,
Even
and
with
then
the
go
correction
on,
there.
excuse me?
Even with the correction.
Okay. Number C is the consent calendar for June 1st.
And there, let's see, yes, June 1st. Item A, 3708 to 3773 Gregory Way, project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item B, at 211 to 221 Sycamore Lane, final approval as noted. Item C, 103 David Love Place, was granted project design approval and final approval with condition. And item D, at 400 West Pueblo Street, was granted final approval as noted.
Motion to approve.
First and a second to approve the minutes as read.
I just
Stephanie,
made the motion.
second.
Second.
By Courtney, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances, et cetera.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, board members Hopkins and Kung will be absent from today's meeting. And I went back to my desk a minute ago, and there was a note on my chair that the project at 133 South Salinas is postponed at the applicant's request. So I will need to go out to my desk and try to contact the applicants after 133, and that is item 5. And since we had a half an hour scheduled for that, I will go contact the other 3 and let them know that they might be need to come in a little bit sooner. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Limon, did you have something to add
No, I didn't.
in the announcements? Okay, subcommittee reports. All right, so we're on to item 1, which is various locations in the OC zone. This is a proposal for neighborhood-wide art and mural program in the Funk Zone. The board reviewed these back in April 2014, and this is a revised proposal that we'll be looking at today for final review.
Mr. Chair, before the presentation, I just would like to have some staff comments.
Okay.
So as you've indicated before, the Architecture Board Review approved this program for temporary mural art, public art in the Funk Zone back in April of last year. The final approval was granted for a 3-year time period. The permanent minutes indicate that it was a project design approval. However, I did go back and review the minutes and the tape video, and you did give a final approval. Now, what was confusing was I spoke up after the review of the project and indicated that I wanted the program to be reviewed by the city attorney and that the program guidelines would be further vetted. And unfortunately, that did not happen in a timely manner. So when this applicant came back and informed the city that there was some additional proposed changes on locations, at that time I informed them that we would probably get the program back for re-review and that there's some interest by council to look at the proposed oversight that they're proposing for this, which is a little different than the typical referral to VAP. And I wanted them to explain that oversight today, as well as have an update on the locations that you're proposing at this time, where there are some changes to the locations.
Okay.
And I believe there's still some questions about the mural size, so I'll let them explain those changes.
All right. Thank you.
I mean, do you want a copy of this?
Sure, please, if you don't mind. Is there one for the camera?
Yeah, I mean, there's one in front of the camera here.
Can you turn it so
You
the
can take that
audience
copy
at
too,
home
Mike.
can see it? Because you're on camera here. Your drawings are on camera right now.
Okay.
So this one is extra, looks like.
So I'll just review the changes that were made. Most of this packet is the same as it was before. Again, just the idea behind this public art program, just as a refresher, was that the city, back when it changed the local coastal plan in 2004, chose to list all of the arts uses as something they were encouraging down in that neighborhood. And this was a way we were trying to create a program where the city could be proactive in the support of that, because for the most part, the city is reactionary to whatever developments come through the process. And most of the time, arts uses are not what pays the bills down in that zone that's going through the gentrification that's there right now. So this is a manner by which, like, the local artists and local groups can try to encourage more art down there in the light that if the city intended or wished for this to be kind of an arts district, the best way for that to become apparent is if everybody drives through it, sees a lot of art, a lot more art than they see typically in the city with murals all over the place. And the way to simplify that process was to take the review of the murals out of the typical board process of coming here and then having to go to VAP and the Arts Advisory Council and going through this kind of process where artists need to show, the specific mural that they're going to paint. And then, as if they're a paid commercial artist, go to an empty wall and put a grid on it and repeat that art, because that's not really art for most artists. Most artists that are in the local community that want to give their time, they're not getting paid for it. They're certainly not getting paid much for it. And so the process of art is much more compelling if there's an empty wall and within a set of guidelines of what's appropriate to paint, they get to just do art, either individually or as a group. Without this kind of process, and that the program would be internally curated within the Funk Zone and would only be applied to the OC zone, so these boundaries. So generally the guidelines, this kind of write-up of the history of the neighborhood and why this is supportable, it's all remained the same. In the guidelines, Jaime asked that what we had before was that the art and the choosing of the art would just occur between the building owner and the artist, right? And the approval process that we were taking through the board here, again, what got approved last year was that the board would have the oversight of approving locations and the size of the art per location. But once that location was a part of the program, the building owner could get together with an artist of their choosing and paint that and repaint it as often as they wanted without having to come back here again, right? So what Jaime had asked for as a benefit is instead of just having it be between the building owner and the artist, that there was some sort of oversight.
Right.
And so the Arts Fund, which is located in the Funk Zone, has chosen to take on that role. Right, so they're very connected to the local arts community. It's what they were founded to support, and they see it as a very happy kind of union to take oversight of this program and take it out of me, right? Like I'm an architect, I'm an advocate of the arts, but I don't have any direct business in the Funk Zone or interest in the Funk Zone. My interest is purely to increase the amount of art.
If I may just clarify, so is that part of the proposal today, is that they be the oversight committee as opposed to us?
Well, the oversight, the program hasn't changed in terms of the oversight. What the program that you approved last year was that for 3 years was that you reviewed the locations. Yep. And you approved a number of locations last year.
Right.
And that the art would be selected by the building owner directly without any oversight by somebody else.
I see. Okay.
And what we're adding in now as kind of a safeguard is that the Arts Fund would have that coordination role between the building owner and the arts community.
Okay.
Would vet, that the art is appropriate, right? Mm-hmm. Make that selection. If there was a need, if somebody came and tagged a wall and it needed to be painted and cleaned up, they would take on that. If there was a problem that arose somehow through the neighborhood and a painting needed to be repainted and another artist needed to be chosen for that location, they would take care of that, so that there was less of a hole, there was less of a hole than what we had before, right?
Yes.
So we're giving, I think, a more robust program in terms of the community interests, but the role of the ABR hasn't changed.
All right.
Right. So we've added that language in here. In our guidelines, we also added, last year there was a minority opinion that landscape should be incorporated, right? So we basically added in that artists will be encouraged to engage their pieces with surrounding landscape elements, but it is not a requirement, right? So that if there's a big wall and there's some landscape associated with that, the artist is encouraged to take that into consideration, right?
Okay, well, I think I'm glad you pointed that out because that might be a topic for discussion. I noticed that in our comments last time, we did express, or some board members expressed concern about the landscaping that might be related or associated or adjacent to a proposed mural. Not necessarily that the piece incorporate the landscape element, but that that the landscape be protected. I think that was the issue. You know, we didn't want people taking down trees so that you could paint your mural, right?
Yeah.
That's a gross statement of it, but that was the concern.
Right.
So I'm not sure if the way you've stated it there is quite what we had in mind, but that's okay.
Right.
Let's go on to the others.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things with what was surprising about the minutes is we didn't come to the minutes a week after that final hearing occurred and actually review this because some of those conditions were actually minority opinions, not actual conditions and a consent that were made by the motion, you know, what we were just going with the other thing. But beside the point, so the other thing that we basically did that was a reaction to the hearing, in the last hearing I wasn't able to be at, somebody else came and gave it as my proxy, is that you wanted to have a map that was more clear in terms of where the locations were. So we basically created a numbered map now that shows specifically which murals are part of this program.
Okay.
This is what you had marked last time through.
Oh, okay.
Right. And on that one, we were also showing, you know, murals that were like, you know, within HLC area and that, you know, were done as part of development applications. And what this program is that these are typically walls on private property that are being painted on a temporary basis as not a part of a development process. It's just a painting, right? And if a development process comes through the ABR, and there's a mural that is a part of that development process, then it goes through the regular channels, right, that you always have because it's part of a development project.
Yeah.
Right.
We're just approving these specific ones here.
Yeah, and these are just approving these locations.
Locations, right.
Right. So what I've done then as well is we basically numbered each of these pages, right? So each page.
And we approved the sizes as well. That was part of that was my understanding anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So we basically have assigned these numbers then, so it's very easy to see, you know, here's number one, where it is in terms of a location, the approximate size, if there's a mural there already, what it looks like, photograph of the context, right? Each of these locations has a one-page synopsis, right? So this was approved, right? The end of the Municipal Wine Building, this location was approved. This was, I think, one of the ones where we got into a conversation about the landscape elements, right?
Yes.
This location was approved. This location most likely is going to change. I understand that there's a development process coming through the pipelines for changing, like adding an entrance or something from this building into the parking lot. So this location most likely is going to come out of this program, become part of the development process.
Okay.
Right?
Can you just go to the ones that have changed rather than going through all of them?
Yeah. So the clarity that we wanted was there's two locations that were approved. Right. One was basically the grain tower, where we had this central area of the tower, kind of as the area that we were requesting to be painted, and that was based on a photograph, basically being put it onto like a wheat paste and attached to the wall, and the building owner doesn't want to do that particular piece. And one of the conversations that occurred last year was there seemed to be a fair amount of conversation that if you had a wall area, why were we creating kind of a fake boundary inside the wall area, as opposed to allowing the artist to choose what part of a wall or all of a wall would be painted, and that the logical place to make a boundary was where the wall turned a corner. Right? And so that's the clarity. There's two locations here. We're asking for clarity, right? This is one of them. We would like to have the
whole surface.
the boundary be the whole surface and let an artist choose whether it's a portion of that or the whole or whatever, so that it's not this kind of, what exactly is that dimension that's being approved, right? And then there's the Quonset hut.
So that's page,
That's location number 5.
location number 5.
Yeah.
All right.
And then on location number 6, what we had approved was the doors of this Quonset hut. But what we realized is when the businesses are open, which is most of the time that most of the traffic is there, those doors are hidden inside the wall. So nobody sees any of that, right? So what we're asking for is an extension of the area that's allowed to include a symmetrical area on either side of that door.
Okay.
Location 7 remains the same. Location 8 remains the same. Location 9 is the Arts Fund facade itself. It came through a separate process with ABR for this particular mural. It had a 1-year kind of period that it was good for. That period is now complete, and they'd like to have their wall as a part of this program. So it's already been approved and looked at and all that sort of thing. It just now wants to be a part of the program, so that if they want to repaint it from this design to another one, they can do it directly with an artist without needing to come back here again. So that's a new location.
Okay, let me just circle that page, sorry. And that's number 9.
That's number 9. And then there's a new location, basically. It's basically at 127 Gray Avenue. In this location, the wall itself has a vine growing over it, and the owner and us as well don't want to remove any of that. They had a piece of art there, a temporary piece of art there previously, where it's basically a 4x8 piece of plywood that's on a frame, and it's hung off the roof above. It sits in front of that vegetation, and they'd like to have that be a part of this program.
The panel, the removable panel?
The removable panel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right.
We had some other locations, but we weren't able to secure the owner authorization form prior to this meeting, so those might have to wait to another time.
All right. Sounds good. So if that concludes your presentation,
Unless you guys want to say anything.
Do you have any questions? Do you have any?
Yeah.
I would just like to make a couple comments. My name is
Sure.
Brad Knack, and I'm the executive director at the.
there's a button right in the face.
The one that says push. My name is Brad Knack, and I am the executive director at the Arts Fund. And I just wanted to make a quick comment is why I think this is very important is it's sort of like a museum and just an open air museum. And we've already seen with some of the murals that already exist, people, I am in the area all the time, and you drive by and you see people that just obviously aren't from Santa Barbara taking pictures and stopping. And I get the impression it's just anecdotal impression, but they know about these because this one mural in particular is on Instagram and it's got a lot of followers. And so people are kind of like stopping, I think, between their way from LA to San Francisco and, taking pictures. And this public art in general is a big economic driver because people do come to see these things. So I'm envisioning a really beautiful district with art, and it's kind of the perfect place, the Funk Zone. But again, it's temporary, and a thing that I'm very interested in is having Santa Barbara become an arts destination. It's already a cultural destination, but anything we can do to help that and embellish that, I think is important for the city for economic reasons and just to make our city an interesting place to be and live. What else did I want to say? So we're willing to take the responsibility and help facilitate that and the maintenance. And then earlier you were talking about the trees at 5 Points. And I really like the idea of keeping those trees because I think you were mentioning how they're healthy trees, and yet in the language they could maybe. So I'm all in favor of all the vegetation staying safe and not getting paint on them and being careful with that. And we just did a mural with our teen mentorship program in Santa Maria which is an 80-foot long mural with a big tree right in front of it. And the design actually has a silhouette of the tree going through the wall, and it came out really great. We had 20 kids involved with it, and it was, yeah. I wish we had a photo of it right now.
I do, and I think with street art, it's so site-specific that the artists actually really enjoy kind of working with, the area that they were given, and, like they incorporated the tree in Santa Maria. I think they kind of relish that. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the presentation and take comments from the board. We have from the audience, we have 3 speaker slips. First is Brad Knack.
Oh, that's me.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, 1 down. Second is Morello Ricci.
Marcelo.
Yep. Thanks,
2 down.
Marcelo. Yeah, I like the way this is going. Third is Jenny Brush.
All right.
Hi, Jenny Brush, Executive Director of the County Arts Commission, and I serve as staff to City Arts Advisory. I just want to say that I'm very supportive of this project. I've been involved for some time. I'm delighted to know that the Arts Fund is taking on the maintenance or the oversight of the mural project. I think that's something that the Arts Advisory was very much interested in. I think it's great that these areas have been identified and that there's so much attention to keeping that element alive in the funk zone. I do want to go on record as saying it is not accurate to portray that the City Arts Advisory requires grids on buildings and completed artwork for approval. That is not a representation of our process or what was expected of this process. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Close public comment or into questions from the board, and I would just like to limit our questions and comments to the changes to the what we already approved. Anyone have questions on the board?
I have just a clarification. I don't know if it's a question or a comment. The 2 murals that you mentioned, the size will be changing, the one on the Grain Tower and then also the one that's on the door of the Quonset hut.
Right.
The dimensions that you have listed on both of those sheets are not updated, so maybe that's a comment.
Okay.
I would just make sure you correct that so it reflects what you'd like to propose.
Oh, this highlight was. Yeah, it's probably the 25.
It's a little bit unclear there. I think the 25
I would say just
foot
strike
is.
this 15 by 45.
I believe it looks like it's
and it may even
probably
be bigger
more
than that.
like.
I mean, I don't know if we've
55
actually gone
total.
out there and like put a tape measure to the whole building to get it, but.
But for both of those, you've got like 3 squares identified on your images, and you may want to change them to be 1, so it's clear.
Yeah, I mean, this was
zone.
just kind of like the clarification, like, I wanted to show what was previously approved, and then this other, but yeah, you're right, I could just, remove those inner lines if you guys are favorable to allowing, the larger area.
I guess that's
And
more of a
And I
comment.
can go out there with a tape measure and get an exact measurement for them. Because, yeah, you're right, I didn't change this. This probably wasn't correct in the beginning because that doesn't look 10 by 10. So we should change that. Thank you.
The only question I have was regarding this number 6 on page 10. Landscape architect could chime in here, but I'm thinking that it should mention something about protecting existing vegetation, that minor pruning or trimming is allowed, but not removal, something like that. I'm just wondering if.
Yeah, there's one of these which mentions protecting the sidewalks, and we might be able to, So art will be limited to within the pre-approved locations, and all surrounding walls, sidewalks, and spaces will be respected and kept clean. Use of drop cloths and masking will be encouraged during all painting projects. Maybe we just add something in there that includes vegetation. Right, because that's more about the protection of surrounding surfaces.
Okay, all right. We'll add that to our comments, I think.
So that would be like basically amending item number 5.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Just one question.
Yes, Amy.
I mean, obviously, I wasn't part of the last review, but on number 6 on the Quonset hut, I'm wondering, is there any discussion about doing the entire wall?
That would be, again, that would be the easier way to, that's where we just wanted some direction. Again, like I thank you for bringing that up, because the easiest way for this in the future would just be if it's a wall, it's the entire wall, and it's not a portion of it that we're kind of putting this like fake boundary on, because again, like how do you actually determine exactly what that boundary is? And we'd probably be in favor of just the whole wall.
So if an artist was selected to do this, they wouldn't be required to paint the whole wall.
Correct.
They could do whatever portion they wanted to.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and they might just do some design that starts in one corner and transition across the door and up into the upper portion, but it wouldn't be the whole thing. They would just have the flexibility to choose that.
So I wasn't sure if there would.
That's a good
if
comment.
you talked about
Yeah.
it before, but okay.
Yeah.
That was all I had.
But you would also need the owner's approval, right, for that? Because presumably you talked to the owners about these ones you're defining.
Yeah, I mean the owner of this particular property is like fine with the whole wall, but
Okay.
yeah, we would need to coordinate that with the owner for sure.
Comments from the board? Howard?
I agree. These are we questions or comments?
Comments.
Well, I might.
Or you still have questions, we can continue with questions, but I thought everyone.
Did you
was
make a
done.
question? Or did
That
you?
was a question, yeah.
Okay. I like the program, and I'm in favor of opening it up so that you can actually look at a whole building wall, facade.
Mm-hmm.
No boundaries.
Yeah.
Okay. Amy, do you have any
Yeah.
comments?
I agree with Howard. I think using the entire wall makes a lot of sense. It gives
Right.
artists flexibility.
Yeah.
I agree also, and I think this is a great program. I'm glad to see the Arts Fund on board and look forward to seeing the murals. See go up.
My comment would be that, and I'm sure that you have the artists that you select or that get selected to do the work are sensitive to the architecture, but that would be a concern of mine. I would be wanting to limit. For example, I'm not in favor of just opening up, for example, this whole wall.
page?
Number one, 12, page 12.
I don't think that was proposed by anyone.
Well, just comments were just made of opening up a whole wall. I think in this location of the Green Tower, that's fine. And in the case of the Quonset hut, I guess I'm okay with that. But just to clarify that's what we're approving. It's those two locations as being the building wall itself, not necessarily the squares you've defined.
I mean, in this program, so when I amend this for final, I mean, we still need to go to city council right before this is like complete, right?
Well,
so I can make these adjustments to a couple of.
The council won't necessarily review these guidelines. They're going to be informed of these guidelines because we're taking a much broader question of just temporary art in general in outside EPV and within EPV. And so they'll be also be informed of what the ABR approved with this program.
Okay. But I was just going to say, like, if we were to at some point want to, say do this whole wall, right? We would come back to you,
right?
With that request, right?
Okay.
But generally, when we come to the board, I think with new locations, like for instance, there's like the Michael Kate. They have two walls, and we've just been struggling with the property management firm to get their owner authorization. There's some large walls on there, and so most likely we would come to you with the entire wall, and if you chose you wanted to limit it to a smaller size, then you would have that purview when you're reviewing the location.
Okay. Comments, Stephanie?
No comments.
No comments.
Mr. Chair, I have one more comment.
All right.
Related to your guidelines, we talked about item 5 being revised to include landscape, so I'd like to see that done. Also, the second sentence of that item reads as follows: use of drop cloths and masking will be encouraged during all painting projects, I would request that that be changed to required,
Okay.
so that we're sure, protection's being accommodated.
Right. And that was really a direct response to, I think, the first mural that kind of got done down there, where somebody came along and kicked over a paint can on the sidewalk and really created like something that nobody intended, to not like have that happen again.
Do you want to roll that into a motion?
Sure. So you're here for final review.
Yes.
So motion to approve as submitted with the following comments. Applicant shall revise the language of item 5 under the guidelines to include the protection of landscape, existing trees, and required use of drop cloths. The board is in support of the project as a whole, and let's see, the board supports under item 5 the use of the entire side of the grain tower as the mural area. The board supports the use of the entire side of the Quonset hut for item 6 as the mural area.
Location 6.
Location 6.
Okay.
And you approve 9 and 10, the new locations?
There's new location?
Yeah.
Did I miss that?
Yeah. Well,
There's
that
those last
panel.
two.
Oh, yes.
You hadn't seen
So
those
the
before.
board supports the new locations, incorporating the Arts Fund location 9 into the program, as well as location 10.
Second.
Thank you, Stephanie. All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just want to inform you that there still is a current process where you can refer projects to the Visual Arts and Public Places for their advisory comments. So if you do see those projects outside the funk zone, that process still exists. This is just going to be a special review process for the funk zone.
Okay.
Okay.
And I know you raised this question before, but I think in the future, if other board members can comment, that if there's minor changes to areas that are being painted, that could go to the consent calendar as opposed to the full board? Okay.
And what about if there's a new location, would that go to consent or?
I think it depends on the size and the location.
Okay.
Staff's purview.
Yeah. Staff can determine that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so we're on to item 2, 1200 block of Pimientos. This is a continued item. The second concept review was last reviewed September 2nd. Comments only. The environmental assessment is required. And it's a replacement of the bridge at 500. Welcome.
Thank you.
Please.
Yeah, my name is Tom Conti. I'm a project engineer for Bengal Engineering. We're the prime engineering consultant.
I'm David Black, landscape architect for the project.
Okay. Our last meeting, of course, was September 2nd, 2014. Since that meeting, we've had multiple project design team meetings with the public and with the city stakeholders. In essence, we've been meeting monthly since about August of 2014. So this first sheet is a little refresher for some folks that may not have been on the board at the time of our project introduction. It's our constraints map. So as you would imagine, the project is to replace the bridge here on 500 Street. It's 100% grant funded by the Federal Highway Administration with oversight of Caltrans. The bridge is a single-span structure. And then some statistics here. It's a reinforced concrete T-beam structure, and it's actually straight on a curved roadway. You don't see that now, but you will a little bit further down the road. So looking into some of these constraints here that we saw on the project onset, there's a lot of property line cleanup that will need to be done, and you'll see that also on the next exhibit where the right-of-way lines and the property lines are. The bridge is actually, the Quinto Street is actually a SBCAG alternate bike route, so we know it accommodates bike traffic. In fact, in this aerial photo that we shot, there's a couple bikers on the road. The road's fairly narrow. There's a flood control access road on the upstream easterly side that we'll need to accommodate. There's definitely some site distance deficiencies, specifically on this corner here. The crosswalk is actually recessed back 30 feet from the intersection, so pedestrians in a blind spot and also vehicles have a hard time seeing. Water quality is also a constraint. The storm drains discharge directly into the creek, definitely not up to a standard of today. And then lastly, what we received was a fairly degraded habitat with a lot of invasive species, including blackberries, ivy. In fact, our senior ecologist, restoration specialist, says it's one of the worst that she's seen in the city because it's so overgrown with species. Things that we learned from the public during the process, the importance of the trees, shading, of course, the residents, the properties, minimizing the right-of-way impacts. And also one of the bigger things was speed. We understand there's a perception of speeding on this road. We feel that it's a global issue, I think, not only in the city, but at the county, state. Everybody's driving a little too fast. We understand that. So with that, we can flip over and look at the next sheet here.
I'm just going to mention that there was 7 items of a motion, and were these addressed since the last meeting?
Yes.
They were?
Yeah, well, they will be addressed. The first meeting was more of an introductory meeting where we didn't really have a lot of design plans, so I think the board had a lot of comments of saying, hey, we need this, and this.
Yeah,
we understand that.
And those are incorporated into today's
Correct.
presentation?
Correct.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay. So we can flip to the next page here. So this is a general plan layout of the roadway and the bridge. It shows some of those comments. It shows our right-of-way lines. It shows the individual property lines. It shows some of the drip lines or the shade structure of the trees that we're proposing to remain. There's also some demarcations of ones we're going to propose to remove. We'll talk about those later in a tree removal diagram specifically for those removals. Let me flip my page here.
So this is the extent of the work right here. Is that right, is it?
The next page actually describes a little bit better. Let me continue on.
Right.
So what this does show is the existing bridge here highlighted in kind of a purple with a proposed bridge on this magenta or pink line, and you'll see the original structure is it's a straight line. The line is it's a straight line on a road, but the road actually curves. We're proposing actually a curved structure on a radius of about 172 feet. The radius ends just on the easterly abutment here. So we're proposing a curved bridge, which I think adds a lot of character to the road, and it'll also help a lot with some of the site distance issues. So it also shows, this exhibit shows some of the realignments we're doing with the sidewalks. As you can see here, the crosswalk is recessed, as I was mentioning. It's about 40 feet from the intersection here of Canada Street and Quintos Clifton. We're bringing it up so that the pedestrians actually have a better line of sight walking on the sidewalk, and cars could see them easier. And it also aids to vehicles pulling up and having a better line of sight for oncoming traffic. So we feel there's a lot of benefit to the geometry here. So the geometry that you see here is brought up to a modern, acceptable code. We went to battle extensively with Caltrans to minimize our footprint, minimize as much as we possibly could, to the point where they were going to deobligate grant funds. So we've had this conversation with the regulators, and this roadway geometry was approved by them. So they're happy with them. The city traffic engineer's happy with them. We're happy with the general layout of the geometry of the road. But there's other little facets, like I was mentioning, the curb extensions showing better pedestrian passageway that we've created to augment that. Okay, I guess we can flip the page here. So this page actually shows, it takes the ortho photo off of the diagram, which I think shows a little bit more of the limits. So this is the roadway limits that we're proposing to work on. It shows the general roadway that we're improving. These match lines are where we're conforming back to grade, vertical and horizontal. The green highlight is the actual sidewalk that we're improving. We're widening sidewalk in a lot of locations for better pedestrian travel. The sidewalks are very narrow on the bridge, or something like 5 feet. We're increasing them to about 6.5 feet. We are increasing the roadway width as part of that Caltrans buy-off. That was one of their bigger requirements, to increase the width. This diagram also shows the street lighting location. We're proposing 4 lights. The City of Santa Barbara Public Works staff is actually going to be coming back to ABR on a global east side lighting plan, so we're not proposing a fixture right now. It's going to be, the city's going to come back and look at the whole east side. There's a lot of projects coming forward on the east side, so they're going to look at it at a global perspective. So we don't have a fixture right now. So let's see. So the wider bridge definitely accommodates bike traffic. As I mentioned, there's an alternative bike route for SB-CAG through here. We're widening the bridge significant enough to accommodate traffic, bike traffic and vehicle traffic. Bike Coalition has looked at the layout, the general layout of the bulb outs or the curb extensions, and they think they look okay. They think they're fine. They approved them. Okay, so I guess we can flip another page here.
Do you want to talk about the dimensions of the bridge itself?
We could talk about it here. So this is the creek layout. So as David was mentioning, the dimensions of the bridge are widening. So the existing bridge is 36 feet overall. We're proposing a 36-foot curb to curb, and then a 52-foot outside to outside. The bridge is going to span a little bit longer, from about a 38-foot span to a 45-foot clear span. This is for a couple reasons, predominantly to slow velocities down in the channel. It's slowing them about 1 to 2 feet per second underneath the bridge, which helps with some of this downstream bank erosion. So what this shows, this creek limit diagram shows generally the area that we're going to be impacting in the creek. It shows the existing top and toes of bank. It shows the bridge changes in dimensions from proposed to new, and it also shows the tree canopies again. And one other note here is that there is a flood control easement here that needs to be accepted from by the city. We're going to be re-putting this. We're going to grade this road for flood control. On the corner here, it shows the general cross sections of the creek. We're proposing to lay back the creek bank on a 1.5 to 1. Go ahead.
This is a road going down to the creek area?
It's flood control access, that's correct. They use it for access during, to clean up debris or during protection.
And that's current?
Yes.
Currently graded that way?
Yes, it
Okay.
is. Yeah, and that's an important thing to note. This bridge is in my mind, a vital bridge in this side of the city. This is the bridge conveys a 100-year flow, so during flood situations, this bridge is vital for emergency services and folks to cross. So it's a great asset that we have the opportunity to improve the bridge and restructure it. So here's our bland kind of tree removal plan. I do have an exhibit, a photo exhibit next that shows the actual pictures of most of the trees that we're proposing to remove. The biggest area that you'll see that a lot of red X's are on this corner of Kenyatta and Clifton Street or Kenyatta Street. There's this oak tree here, this beautiful oak tree that's about 40, 50 years old, I'd say, and it's just getting bombarded by these palm trees growing up through the branches and stuff. So what we're looking at doing in consultation with David and our restoration specialist and the city engineer is remove these palm trees and really give this oak room to grow and prosper for many years to come. We're proposing to remove this hedge line here. It's a little bit ragged, and we're proposing, David will show you what we're proposing on our landscape plan.
There's photographs, right?
Yes, there is, and we could always flip to that too. It's a little more colorful, but on the westerly side of the bridge, these two trees unfortunately are proposed to be removed because they're in direct impact of the deep excavation that's going to be happening. So there's an 18-inch palm and this Norfolk palm that's pine, excuse me, that's fairly tall and predominant in the neighborhood, but because of the deep excavation, it's going to leave it very vulnerable for future. On the upstream side, there's a few willows that are also directly in that impact zone of the deep excavation and grading. And then on the western upstream side, there's this 26-inch amber that's fairly diseased now that we're looking to remove. So we can flip over here, and it shows some of the photo montage that we did to show you what we're doing.
Sorry to interrupt. Susan, do you know how to turn the air conditioning off? It's getting chilly. Thank you.
So on this corner, I kind of cascaded them for each corner here. It shows this oak tree here with these palm trees literally growing 2 to 3 feet off of the trunk going through some of the branches here. So we're looking to remove 3 of these palms here and then a couple of these bigger palms that sit closer to the creek. Here's the upstream willows that I was mentioning. As you can see, they're kind of dangling off of the existing wing wall now. They're kind of disfigured in a lot of ways.
Will that wall be rebuilt?
Yes.
As part of the project?
We are going to rebuild all 4 corners of the wing wall. We're going to need them to transition.
Just to clarify, so you're showing palms removed here, but this plan, which is the same plan, right?
Yes.
Different scale.
Yes.
Looks like different trees.
It's meant to be the same trees.
Okay.
There's 12-inch palm, 18-inch palm.
Let's count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
There's an olive in that group as well. Do you have an image of that, or is it?
We don't have an image of that, but
it's like a 4-inch caliper.
Okay. I thought it said it was a double with an 18-inch.
Yeah, it's not. That's wrong.
So was the count right?
There's one more on this page than the previous.
Really?
We won't hold it against you, though.
Okay. Thank you.
Whatever palms are there are coming out.
Yeah, we really want to look to clean this corner up. We think it's going to be a nice addition to this neighborhood to really accentuate this oak tree. It's a really nice oak tree.
And this is the pine that's coming out?
That's
right?
correct.
That's the one that's over
That is
somewhere?
this one right here, and then there's the palm also. So this pine is interesting. It's actually wider than the sidewalk now. You can literally see folks walking on the sidewalk that jump off the walk into the road. Baby strollers, kids. It's pretty wild. But unfortunately, with the deep excavation, it's going to be left vulnerable on 2 sides, and we're looking to take it out. So with
this big one's coming out too, right?
That's correct. Unless someone wants to come down there with a digger and take it out.
Courtney might want.
With that, I'm going to hand it over to David. He can talk a little bit about the landscape plan.
Same plan, but I've added a couple things, so let's take that. I'll give you this one.
It's the same plan, but it's a different
Well,
plan.
I added a photograph to the second sheet.
This is more recent.
So this is our concept for the sort of the riparian restoration portion of the project. as Tom pointed out, this essentially represents the canopy of the oak tree, which I think is significant. That's the reason, too, that we wanted to, well, of course, palms and oaks don't go together, so we just wanted to clear everything out around this, just put bark mulch under it, and just make it sort of be the focal point of the corner, because it's probably got, I don't know what sort of caliber it indicates here, but it's probably a good 18 to 24 inch. It's rather significant.
Double trunk.
Yeah, significant tree. So these circles here basically represent the canopies of the trees that will remain. And I know right here, for instance, we were sensitive to these trees. I think there's a podocarpus and curiously, a valley oak and some others. Sure. We felt that was important here because there are issues around, well, I don't know if there are issues, but headlights coming down here, so we wanted to sort of protect the residents on this side. But the palette of plant material that you see here on the plan is one that was developed and I coordinated with Cardno Entrix, the biologist on the project, Tamara Klug. And it was a much more extensive list, and so we sort of winnowed it down because we wanted to keep it sort of simple, and which is what we've done. So you can see the palette there. There are oak trees. There are some 20 willows that will be planted 3 feet back from the toe of the slope, so we will get a canopy here along the creek. And I think that the palette sort of speaks for itself. But and then we, like we did at Coda Street, we actually are vegetating the road, the access road. It's a road that's not used very often. We will not have significant shrubs there or trees. So if need be, they can just run over them. But you can see the palette there that we're proposing, which is what we did on the approved Coda Street plan, that bridge replacement. So this is the planting plan. Then in addition to that, we haven't made final decisions on the bridge railing yet, but I show this because, the city has used this particular design on Ortega Street, and also, well, this one on Chapala, which is basically the same design, but just with arched openings. And also this was used at Punta Gorda over on the east side, same creek, Sycamore Creek. So, there'd be some reason for continuity, perhaps. We did this back for the Ortega Street Bridge, and actually all I did was I sort of took the historic bridge that was there, that was built in 1915, and all we did was just provide openings. So there is some historic precedent for this particular design, which is, which we thought was kind of attractive. So, but there's other modifications. We came up with these other alternative designs. I think we'd probably prefer, and the city would prefer, either one of these, but we have some other ones to look at too.
Let me add one thing. I think another reason why these kind of came to the top was because with the curve of the bridge and the fluidity of the rail, and not these kind of bump ups, it will really accentuate the bridge curve. And it'll be a nice addition.
And then these two photographs, as I'm sure you've already seen, represent these bridge railings as they were built at Chapala and Ortega. And then we would propose that the wing walls, the creek walls, would be this sort of faux sandstone block formliner design, with cap that was used at, I just took this morning at Ortega. I think it was pretty effective. It's we can modify the size of the modules too. We may make them larger, but that's a decision we'll make down the road. And then the last thing to look at is there are 3 opportunities for fencing. There's a neighbor on the south and west corner where that big Norfolk pine is here. He already has a white board fence, 42 inches here. So we're basically matching that up to the pilaster at the bridge railing. And then at this location here, and this short section here, we're proposing just a simple wrought iron fence, solid stock, posts, finials, and as shown here.
Yeah, I think the owner of the property on that downstream side would be warm to having this fence. We're not necessarily committed to putting this fence. This was on the opposite side of the driveway that we're not demolishing, but in conversations recently with him, he would be okay to removing this old fence and putting in all this iron picket for the board to decide what's appropriate.
Yeah, as Tom pointed out, there's an existing hedge along here now. It's about 42 inches. And so I think the neighbors felt like a more see-through wrought iron substitute would be advantageous to them. And then at this location here along the property line is where we would propose and as indicated in the detail, black chain link.
I see.
Yeah.
Also 42 inch high.
Yes.
So if I could just clarify this a little bit. So this is the beginning of the concrete rail?
Correct.
And it ends there?
It's actually,
right?
it's actually more like there.
Oh, right, over there.
Oh.
It would end on the...
And this is the retaining wall underneath, is that it?
Yeah, I believe so. That's the proposed.
So this is parallel, basically.
Yeah, the abutment wall would actually be this inside. This is where the bridge seats the abutment walls.
Okay, so this is the picket, the wrought iron, or the
wrought iron.
Wrought iron picket there and there?
No. Well,
No?
wrought iron. Yeah. I don't know. Your definition of picket is.
Well, I'm just looking at the drawing. I'm just trying to understand if make sure I understood it correctly. That this fence
Yes.
looks like the same diagram here as over here. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then there's a little bit of it here.
Yes.
It would go up right up to presumably right where the concrete starts, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Wherever that is.
And then this is what again?
Well, the way it's shown here on this plan, it's a board fence to match the existing, but as Tom indicated, we may coordinate with the owner and have wrought iron here.
Okay. Because we weren't affecting this part of the property, we initially were thinking, well, let's just match this, but the owner would be warm to that wrought iron style.
Yeah.
Okay.
And chain link.
All right. Is it?
That's it.
There is a couple other little diagrams that I have if you flip through. It does show the kind of the creek cross section with David's palette of the laurels and oaks on the upper banks and the willows and the sycamores on the lower, and some of the layout of what some of the palette is and where the locations are. There would be toe rock on the toe of the creek to stabilize the creek banks. This would be up and down the creek, so there would be a sloped bank on the creek conforming to existing.
Sandstone boulders? Is that what you're
We're proposing to get them from local quarries, similar to what we're doing on Mason Street. I think we use Santa Paula Quarry. That's the one we're using there for Cabrillo and Mason. Okay. So we'll propose the same type of situation there. And then we have a couple of the renderings. I only have one copy of this. I apologize. I brought them with us because I didn't want them to get folded up. So this shows the rendering looking, I guess, westerly with the wrought iron fence there on each side. Our preferred bridge rail, which has that fluid Ortega rail with the square window openings. And then just the general layout of the curb.
Did I miss something, or is this? I thought this was straight. This looks curved. Is it?
The bridge is curved.
It is curved?
It's a really wide radius.
It is.
It's a slight curve. This is kind of a little
It is.
deceiving.
It's 172 radius, so it's.
Okay. It looks like more of a curvature in the rendering, but it's nice. All right.
So this shows one rendering with the a little bit different color scale, this shows the one rendering with the white fence as just an option for the board to consider on which one they wanted to see. Just a visual presentation on how the difference is. And then we have one view of the other side looking easterly, how the preferred rail and the curve and the layout of the roadway.
Okay.
That concludes your presentation.
Thank you. very much. So we'll open up public comment. There's 3 speakers who have submitted slips. First is Donald Harris. Please come on up, and we'll give you a microphone, and you tell us what you think.
Well, I'm
Hi.
the person who has the wrought iron fence as opposed to the wood fence.
Yes.
And I think the wrought iron fence is a better idea because the wood fence is just a pallet for taggers. And it's so hard to tag wrought iron. So I'd much rather see wrought iron.
Okay, great.
And I guess that's about all I have to say at the moment.
All right, thanks. Thanks for your comment. Claire DePanisa? Did I get that right?
No, Denise.
DePanise.
It's okay. I brought photos, so just for handy dandy stuff. I'll give those to you. So I'm the neighbor who I think is the closest, along with this neighbor with the fence. But my front yard literally looks right down into this creek, and so I'm actually on Clifton Street because at the bridge, Clifton turns into Quinientos.
Yeah, can we see
Yes.
Let's do it in front of the camera here.
I will, of course, I'll do that.
Here we go.
So they are residents here. They have some really nice redwood trees here that we're striving to retain for that visual screening.
So we're right on that access road that they're talking about, where there is a gate currently. I don't know if there's still going to be a gate. But my main concern is maintaining our privacy. Thank you. Because as you can see from the photos, let's see, starting with those 2, yes, with the Post-it notes, we have no view of the bridge from our living room or our house right now. All we see are these willows that they're going to cut down, which are pretty damaged willows. They're pretty twisted and not really attached to the trees themselves, just the screen that they provide from the headlights that are going to, when those are gone, they're going to come right into our living room. And I saw in the plans for tree replacement, and they're 15-gallon buckets, which I don't think is a huge tree. So I'm requesting larger trees be put where the willows are being taken out, just because we're going to be so impacted by those being removed. I also noticed there's no mention of any planting on our bank on the north side of the creek. The south side, there's a ton of beautiful natives going in there, but our north side's just going to be empty, and that's what it looks like now. So I don't know if that can be taken into consideration.
Where is that on the map?
It's right here.
This bare area?
Yeah.
But it looks like there is.
Is it in the right of way?
Okay.
It's in
No,
the
it's right.
right away. It's actually private property. It's actually
Yeah, so let's look at this plan here, because it does show
That'd be
the
helpful, yeah.
landscape.
Yeah,
proposed.
we've been keeping off
He's
their.
talking about right in here.
Yeah, we've been keeping off their grading wise, but I'm sure we could accommodate putting trees
Oh,
there,
sure.
right?
Well, or shrubs. some
Yeah,
sort of
shrubs or
screen-
grasses
screen.
or
Yeah.
something would be great.
Well, you want it for screening, correct?
Well, no, the trees on the wall
Oh,
are for
right.
screening, but just for, I mean, one side of the creek is all going to be planted with all those grasses and natives, and it's going to be beautiful, and then our side is just going to be like it looks now, as far as I can tell from the plans.
Is that on your private property, or is it part of the creek, limits of the creek?
I'm not sure. We're part of a condo association. I'm not sure where our property line ends.
This is the condo association's property line here.
So you're actually encroaching on their property?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's see. I want to see if I hit everything. There's also, I showed you a few pictures of giant agaves, and I didn't know if you had any plans to save those or just to remove them. But they're like 10-foot agaves, and they're gorgeous. And if they could be saved and reused in any way, that would be lovely. I just hate to see them just torn out. And then I also want to address parking on the bridge. Our last meeting, we talked about the bridge is going to be 14 feet wider, which is going to swing it right closer to our house.
And you talked about maybe parking being allowed on the bridge, which all of the neighbors said, no parking on the bridge, please, because we already have a major, it's really dense with cars as it is. And I'd love to see a bike lane, a dedicated bike lane on that bridge as well, instead of parking. So, and lastly, I don't really understand how straightening out the curve and making it easier for traffic to go through is going to help with the speeding. I think it's only going to help with the speeding. I mean, I think, people are going to go faster because they don't have to slow down to take that sharp turn on the bridge right now. And a lot of attention's been given to traffic calming, on the lower side. So that's the bridge to Milpas, which is the 500 side of the bridge, but from our side, from the bridge up to Salinas, which is the Clifton side of the bridge, people just fly. So I don't know if we can do anything about that in this project for that, but I would love to see something. I just don't want this to make it easier for people to go faster.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's it.
I could respond
Thank
to
you.
some of those a little bit.
Well,
Oh, wait, here's another picture.
We'll get to questions from the board. We'll get a chance to respond.
Thank you. Is that it? Am I excused?
You are. Thank you so
Thanks for your
much
time.
for your comments. One more speaker, Eric Koga. Eric Schwartz. I don't think there's a name on here, actually. Just see Eric. Come on up, Eric.
Well, it's a beautiful design. There's a few problems, legal problems and safety issues that are a little bit not exactly in your area that you usually work in, but the project will be stopped if they're not addressed specifically and thoroughly. So it's probably, you don't want to put any more of your time into this until we clarify some of the problems. The lady just before me addressed the speeding, and that's the primary problem. It's been addressed by 64 of the most immediate households, Clifton and 500 Street, since 1999. And City Council Resolution 98019 is the resolution that addressed speeding in that area, and the Transportation Department provided the residents who I represent on this issue, the 64 households, Clifton, 500 Street, down to about the dips. Excuse me. Down to about the dips. And all the criteria was met by 2000, 2001 to put in traffic calming. It was never done. The city backpedaled. It was referred to the Transportation Department. Browning Allen did some careful shifting and less than honest maneuvers, and it got involved legally, and the city attorney was involved, and went back and forth between lawyers. It's never been resolved. There's been a lot of accidents there. It's an 8% grade coming down from Salinas to the bridge, and it starts to flatten out just before the bridge a little bit. But it's a steep grade, and without accelerating, you're going to be speeding. And the latest traffic survey that I have showed 85% of the cars approaching the bridge were already speeding. Now we're going to straighten out that bridge, remove the 15-mile-an-hour curve sign, and expect it to be better. Well, it's going to be a little wider. That's better for bikes. But the whole speeding issue above the bridge is essential to this project. This project will affect something that has never been corrected in the past, and the city's in violation already. I've got a packet I could provide to the board here. It's already been provided to these gentlemen and the folks in the back from the city, and I have not heard specifics for addressing what's legally required by City Council Resolution 96019. And this process was, again, started in 1999. 98% of the residents affected signed on to the traffic calming petition to the city, which was printed and provided by the city. I went to each of those houses. They were very enthusiastic, every one of the neighbors with the exception of 2 in one household. So we've got, virtual unanimity on this. Nothing's been done. We fought, I hired lawyers, we hired lawyers.
We hear what you're saying.
And so this has to be addressed. There's been serious accidents there. You can't straighten the bridge till you address speeding. And it's a beautiful project.
Yeah.
And it's well designed, and every aspect of it is well thought out, except for the pre-existing extreme danger of that grade coming in there. And it's been a 16-year battle, and I'm tired. Yeah.
Yep. I hear you. We hear you. And unfortunately, we only have 2 minutes for each public speaker. We would like a copy of the documents you collected. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come down and make your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll get you a cleaner copy.
Thanks.
Would you
Just
like to?
if you could provide it to staff, make sure staff has it, if they don't already have one. Or if there's other board members who'd like to look at it. Okay, so we'll close public comment, unless there's someone else in the audience that would like to speak. Okay. Then we'll go to questions from the board, and we're already 20 minutes behind. So I'd encourage board members to be succinct.
Staff have any
Stop,
comments?
please.
Kirk?
Oh, yes, staff has comments before we have
No,
questions.
I don't have any comments. I'm
Oh.
just here for questions. It's
Okay.
comments only. I guess in regard to the speed, though, I think the applicant has some response to that.
Okay.
But it's there's been a lot of discussion internally about this,
Okay.
the speed and
Okay.
the safety
Well,
issues.
We can start with that. Sure, go ahead.
I think it's a little bit of misinformation about the accidents. The city's traffic engineer did a record for the traffic accidents within the last 10 years, and there's been none recorded. There was one recorded up by Soledad Street, and it was a drunk driving situation. So in the last 10 years, there has not been an accident in the vicinity of the bridge.
In the last 10 years?
Last 10 years.
Okay.
The traffic calming measures, there has been traffic calming measures very recently done on the east side, specifically at the intersection of Soledad and Quinto Street. There's some medians that have been placed throughout the east side, including this road. So there has been some measures done. We are looking at narrowing the roadway on this downhill approach. This is a significant grade. We understand that. We necessarily cannot change the grade of the road. But we are implementing measures to narrow the road to give the perception of narrowness for drivers. The last thing I'd like to mention is that we're not straightening the bridge out. We're actually putting it on a curve. The road is curved, the bridge is curved. On the portions of the roadway, it's actually a typical roadway situation where you have fall on each side. So on this outside radius, you have an adverse, what they call adverse superelevation, which would really puts drivers at a little bit of unease, because instead of banking where you can accelerate, you're on the opposite direction. So it does give drivers a little bit of perception of uneasiness, which does also slow traffic down. So there is some measures that we are implementing, and I just want to put that on for the record.
Okay. Howard, would you like to start with questions?
I have no questions.
Amy?
No questions.
You mentioned bike circulation, but I don't see that identified on your plan. Can you describe what is that and what does it look like?
Yes, so it's an SBCAG alternate route. Currently, as probably the board members know, transportation engineering is working on the bicycle master plan, updating the bicycle master plan.
Mm-hmm.
This is an alternate route. It's a shared lane situation. So at this time, there's no plans for a separate bike lane. There's parking on the east and west side of the road, so there's no room for it. So even if we put a bike lane through here, it's going to go right back into a shared lane situation.
Mm-hmm.
I think the perspective of bike lanes, I'm a biker, I get it. But I'm just, I don't know if putting a small window is necessarily the solution. We're creating more room for bikers, which is definitely an improvement.
How do you prevent people from parking on the bridge?
It's going to be red curbed.
Red curb.
We were initially going to have people park on this upstream side to narrow the bridge for perception, but the neighbors are against it, and we're okay with that.
Okay. David, can you just quickly address why 15 gallons are typically used for creek restorations?
Well, that is pretty standard. I mean, the city has grown sycamore trees from cuttings, and usually, given the lead time for most of these creek projects, 15-gallon is...
Are you speaking to the mic?
I'm sorry. Given the lead time for most of these bridge projects, invariably what happens is the trees from cuttings from this area are 15-gallon size, so we've sort of a standard, we've always used that, but whereas all the other plants are 1 gallon. So, you know, if it turns out that the city has a supply of 15 gallons that could be 24-inch box by the time, you know, this project is planted, then we would do that. And I'm not real clear. We might want to be selective about where if there was a larger tree, let's say a 24, where that would be. I mean, because we've got several trees, species of trees on the plan, oaks and sycamores, and then the willow trees will always be from stakes. That's just the nature of it. They're really fast growing, but we can look into that. I mean, it's not hard and fast.
I'm not asking you to necessarily increase the size. It was more for the benefit of the general public to understand why 15s are usually used for this type of project.
Yeah.
So I think you answered it well enough. That's it.
Okay. Stephanie.
What is the limit of the red curb on the bridge?
Currently, it's no parking on the bridge proper. We would be likely striping from red curb all the way up to where it currently is allowed parking, which is these driveway aprons here down to the east side.
What's the speed limit on the bridge through that area?
In this area right now, it's 25 miles an hour.
Okay, so it hadn't been lowered to 15?
There is a 15-mile-an-hour warning sign on parked right here. It's a yellow warning sign, but it's posted at 25 throughout the neighborhood.
And do you know what the deal is with the traffic calming measures that are being asked by the neighbors, or were they asking for speed bumps in the neighborhood?
I believe that's what they were asking for, is speed bumps, and speed bumps aren't necessarily the ask-all solution or the cure-all solution. I think the measures that the traffic engineers put on Soledad and Quinientos is very appropriate. It's the median-style chicane where it keeps traffic going, but it slows them down around.
That's 3 blocks away.
We can't have public comment at this point.
I have one more question.
Okay,
Mr.
we done,
Chair.
Stephanie?
It was just about the planting in replacement of the willow trees that are being removed. First, I'd like to start with which ones are being removed, because I can't remember where that is. Oh, okay, so 2 willows there.
Mm-hmm. There's actually 3. There's
And then
1, 2, 3 there.
They're proposed. This is upside down. I think I got it here.
It's in the set.
So they were approximately in this area, right?
Yes.
And you're proposing 1 here?
Yes.
Is that a willow tree?
No, I think that's a sycamore.
Oh,
Sycamore.
sycamore tree.
Yes.
Okay.
Sycamore and 2 array willows is what I see.
Here,
Mm-hmm.
smaller?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Is that could that potentially be a larger specimen?
There's certain criteria where we have to plant off of the toe for flood control for them to clear.
It's also a 2-to-1 slope, is it not?
It's 1.5 to 1.
Okay, so it's very steep. So
really steep.
we're better off planting smaller material.
Yeah, let it embed. All right. I just had a couple questions raised by the public. This North Bank planting, it sounded like that might be a possibility to add to the project.
We can look into the feasibility.
Certainly.
absolutely.
Okay, and the question raised about the agaves, Can those be replanted somewhere in the project or not?
No.
Okay.
I mean, we can give them away, but they're not appropriate here, as beautiful as they are.
Okay. All right. So comments from the board.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What are these? Ramps.
Yes, the ramps.
They are ramps?
Yes.
So the crosswalk's here, but the ramp is here?
This is the existing crosswalk. If you pan back over to the civil plan here, the dark bold line shows where we're proposing the new curb lines. This
Right.
screen line, of course, is the existing. So these would be ramps here and here.
Okay.
This would be striped, I believe, but this one would not.
You mean in terms of the crossing? Striped. Okay, thanks.
So there's quite a bit of detail still that we're not seeing yet in terms of all of that.
Absolutely.
That
This
works.
is concept design, and we'll be back to the board for preliminary approval with CEQA and a lot more developed plans.
Okay. Comments? Yes.
I have one question. What keeps these little plants alive until they are established?
Well, I think there's an obligation, a 5-year maintenance period. 3 or
Irrigation?
5. Oh, yeah, irrigation. It'll all be dripped, certainly, as is all the creek projects that we do.
Yeah, we'll have a specific bid item for plan establishment for the contractor to establish the plans. I think it's typically 180 days, and then the city, Creeks Division, or their contractor helps for another period of time to make sure they're established.
Okay, comments, Howard?
I like this project. I think it's a big improvement. I think that the concerns of the neighbors about calming, slowing traffic down is I support that. I think that can be done. Red curbing for no parking, absolutely. And I also favor using fences, wrought iron or chain link, that are transparent to the eye so that the bridge actually stands alone against the landscape. And the other thing is, because of the standalone, then the bridge becomes a piece. And that would lead me to favor one of your options here. This one, it's called alternate number 2. But I would make the ends big, and I would have 2 intermediate, and then just, in other words, instead of having 6 panels, I would have 3 panels, longer, with the large pieces at the end and maybe intermediates that are smaller.
Howard, can
So
you
it
come
would
over
be-
here and show us what you mean?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
These are solid, though, aren't they?
They're actually
They're windows.
They're openings.
windows.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
these are you can see
Punched
through,
up.
or are these solid panels?
They're transparent. They're windows.
Yes.
They're windows.
But this is the opening,
Yeah.
and this is a recess,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they're
Am I
sort of
correct?
chamfered.
Yeah.
They're 4-inch sphere type of thing.
I like this detail for this bridge. I think this is more, Spanish style, but I think this is kind of right for this bridge. I would get rid of this guy, this guy, this guy, and I'd make these important, these 2 important, so you have 3 long panels instead of 6 short ones. And I would try to get some kind of a detail on these intermediate ones too, although these could be smaller, and I would maybe make these more important. Anything you can do to make the openings larger. This is a chamfer. You could do a little chamfer there as well, smaller chamfer, so it gets larger openings.
Yeah, I mean, these are chamfered, these recesses and such.
This is a recess.
Yes.
And it's chamfered
Right.
recess.
Yes,
What's
it is.
this at the top here?
Nothing. Well, there's a chamfer on the top,
Yeah,
as I
That's what I
remember.
was referring to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you prefer the pilasters that break the fluidity of the bridge? You would prefer
But fewer of them.
Fewer of them. It's
I
too-
see.
This is too busy. It's a nice
So
design, but too busy.
If I may.
Take
Yes.
this one
Sure.
out, this one out, and that one.
That's fine.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
I understand.
That's my vote.
So it's
And then make these
mirroring
more
these.
detailed,
Yes,
prominent
but not
and
with the arch.
detailed, to
This
ma-
is
to
designed
match
about
these? Just make these to match these?
I'd like to make these bigger, these smaller, yes. These are bigger, actually.
They are
They
bigger.
are, yeah.
But add more detail to this?
I would,
Or-
yeah, I would put a recessed, or what do you call it, embossed panel in there.
Yeah. Now, these one, as opposed to, those two, having the pilaster extend above the railing, I mean, you
Yes.
prefer that?
Yes. This is a little too monotonous. This has a nice kind of a rhythm.
Yeah. It's not a big bridge. I mean, that's the way Ortega and Chapala are.
That's good.
Yeah, this is the Coda
They're not
Street
nice.
Rail.
Anyway, it's just a suggestion of
thank you.
modulating. Those are my comments.
Okay. Can I put your signature on here? All right. Amy?
Crash tested.
Yeah, I like this project also. I think it's going to be an improvement to that intersection and the bridge itself. I actually think the number 1 for the design on the bridge is appropriate. That's the one, I believe, that's in the rendering.
Correct.
I think that looks great as proposed, along with the wrought iron railing. And then I also agree with the red curb on the bridge that extends past the bridge, just so that people won't park there. And since you mentioned that there's a 15-mile-an-hour sign, maybe it could be appropriate to put it on the other side also, but it's just more of a comment. But I like the project as presented.
If anyone's interested, you can go down to Punta Gorda, which is also on Sycamore Creek downstream, and this is the design that's there now, most recently built.
Yeah, I think the curve is a big improvement, especially and it was a nice presentation. It's really clear on what you're trying to do.
I agree with Amy. I think is it option A or 1? The bridge we're looking at here is the most appropriate. I think it should be kept simple, and that's what that design achieves in my mind. The only comment I have is on the wrought iron fence. I do prefer this to the wood fence, but I think the ball finials may not be appropriate. I mean,
For that neighborhood.
yeah, I mean, I think it should be kept simple, and the balls.
Maybe just a flat cap.
Yeah. I mean, I would be happy with it either way. I just think in terms of how it looks in relationship to the bridge component, it should just be kept simple, similar to Howard's comment. And regarding the plant material, I think the sizes you're proposing are appropriate, and that's what we typically see for restorations. The smaller material needs a real chance to establish itself, and so that's why we use typically even 1 gallons for restoration projects. So I would ask that you guys look at addressing additional screening in that area.
Sure.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Stephanie?
One quick, your proposal was for holes through there or no? Like
Yes.
on Punta Gorda?
Those are openings.
Okay, and that's what is reflected here?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that true? Are these openings as well?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
all of them
Yeah,
are.
it's
Okay.
this image.
All right.
Okay. I would be fine with 1 or 2, and when I say 2, it's 2 per Howard's design. And I agree that it's a great project, very well done. And I would say also add that if you're going to add painted crosswalk to one area of the crosswalk, the bulb outs, then you should add it to both, and that could be also a traffic calming measure as it goes across the main thoroughfare.
Okay. I'll just add my voice to it. I think maybe something that's just a little different from Punta Gorda would be nice, so there's a little differentiation there. And I do like Howard's ideas with alternate 2. And just had a question, does this detail come around this corner, or is it just stop right there?
The detail, are you?
Well, this recess, seems like there should be a recess and a little lip right there.
Yeah, the little lip right there, yeah, it would be continued around. I think that's just a shadow.
Okay.
That's,
See, actually, the
a good eye
rendering looks a
there.
little different, because this is then popping out. This whole thing is popping out, and then you would see it kind of doing that.
Keep an eye on those renderers.
Yeah, that's I think, something.
One variation of this one that we did at Chapala Street next to the train station is that they have arched openings. It's the same design, but the arch tops. Yeah. And that looks nice, too.
Yeah. I think there's, we prefer the flat tops. But,
okay.
And I don't have any other comments to add to that. I think it is a nice design. So we need a motion, and it would just be concept review, comments only. Would someone like to summarize our comments? Or I will. So the board appreciates the thought and effort gone into this design. And in terms of the concrete bridge guardrail itself, some version of alternate 1 or 2 is preferred as marked up on sheet 8 of 9. That the board approves a slightly simpler design for the wrought iron fencing, and to use the fencing wherever possible as opposed to a wood or solid fence. That planting should be added on the north bank. Northeast bank to the northeast side of the access road. There's another landscaping comment. Was that?
I didn't have anything else.
No. Sizes were okay.
I said the sizes of the trees are appropriate as proposed.
Okay. Would someone like to make that motion?
About a crosswalk? There was a crosswalk comment to using a crosswalk across as a traffic calming device.
I don't recall that.
I just said if they're striping, which he proposed striping across this street, but he said there's no striping over here, and I suggested that they apply striping to both crosswalks as a traffic calming measure.
Okay, we can add that. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Stephanie, seconded by
Second.
Courtney.
What's the motion?
It's comments only, isn't it?
It's the comments I just summarized.
Is it?
That
I'm sorry,
continued
yes,
indefinitely.
Continued indefinitely, back to the full board. Yes, right. Unless you want to come back in 2 weeks.
Probably 6 months.
In 6 months, right, yeah. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
You have to keep these
Courtney,
pretty pictures too.
seconded.
Okay.
Don't hold them too
Very
hard.
nice.
Too bad you had to call all those people, and we're going to be like
You'd be interested in knowing.
so far behind.
The multi-trunk sycamore that was down at Mason Street that unfortunately they had to take out.
Yes.
That were
You know what?
California
We
hotels
just
back
keep
Mason Street.
one of these
They're building a
probably.
bridge now. So we took cuttings off that.
Is that all right?
Yeah,
Does that work?
Big they're already this tall.
Oh, great.
And then some of them are actually 24-inch boxes.
Guys, come on. You've spent enough time.
I'm not playing with
Homer and Surge.
Of the change plans, this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those will be used for this project, or?
They're used for Mason, but they're
Well,
creating a
this is the
whole
one that-
supply of them. They're all contract run.
It's up to you.
Nice.
If you want all
Who
three?
do you work with for that? Is it?
Santa Barbara natives in that particular case. Those and Growing Solutions, those two the city uses.
Great.
529 West
Thank you.
Junipero.
I have one that's not folded that'll probably be easier to look at.
Is it exactly the same, Ryan?
They're exactly the same.
Sorry, 540 West Pueblo Street. This is item number 3, and we're 40 minutes behind.
You are, so I hope you don't take that much time with me. Okay.
So, Mr. Chair,
Brian
just a
Cornell.
quick
Yeah, go ahead.
comment. So this project is coming back as a substantial conformance determination request. We will be bringing this to the Planning Commission to a lunch meeting soon, but we'd like your comments on the design prior to that.
Okay.
Here are the photos. Let me just hold on to these for.
Is it in progress review?
No, this is really a concept review for a substantial conformity determination is really what it is. But
We're calling it in progress because it is part of the overall project. And we
Okay.
did look at
so
a
here's,
design on
I won't go
Nipro in the past.
through the photos. You guys can peruse these, but we're talking about this parcel that is right here. Of course, when this is all said and done, all the parcels go away, but for the purpose of understanding it, that is the parcel. And this was a new building that was going to be 2 residential units. So basically what we did is we had a duplex. We preserved the Breast Cancer Resource Center and assumed it was a commercial building, so it was parked at the commercial rate, and then a new duplex. What we realized in looking at this is that this building, first of all, was never legally converted to a commercial use. It's a turn-of-the-century Victorian.
It's that pink house, right?
That's the little pink.
Yeah.
Well, is it pink? I guess it
Pinkish.
is. Yeah, but it is it's the Breast Cancer Resource Center. So this is the most historically significant building on certainly that we were dealing with. So we said, you know what? If we're gonna, if that is the case, trying to convert this, do a change of use on this building is going to be a very expensive proposition. It's 2 stories. It's got some real low plates in it. So what we decided was what makes the most sense is to maintain that building as it currently is allowed by the city, which is a residential use. So in other words, put the 2 residential units into that building and make this building the new commercial function. That then initiated a lot of discussion at Sansom in terms of, okay, Breast Cancer Resource Center is going to have to move out because of construction anyway, and when they move, are they going to want to move for the duration of construction and then move back into a new building? And if we're going to do a new building, what should it be? And where that discussion landed after a lot of talk was the notion of an auditorium space that could be used by the staff of Cancer Center. This building is seriously impacted in terms of its program use. It could be a lot bigger if it was possible. And the thing that they feel they lack for both this building and for the main Sansom clinic is space for basically teaching clinics, whatever it may be, but an actual auditorium scenario for the clinic to be able to utilize. So that's what we are presenting. We'll be going to the Planning Commission for a concept review of this because obviously issues of use come into play. You'll probably hear from the Oaks Preschool because obviously they're concerned about uses. The intent of this, just to give you a brief scenario, is that this would be used by the staff of Cancer Center, by the staff of Sansom, very possibly by staff of at Cottage, and that people will for the most part walk here. It won't be used at night. It'll be used during the day, and we do have the parking in the parking structure to cover that use because, of course, we had already assumed that this was medical office use. And basically, in terms of the parking requirement for an auditorium, it ends up being pretty much, believe it or not, like for like. So that's where we are on that score. Let me be more clear. It's not like for like, but we had some surplus parking, as you recall, in this parking structure, and so we are able to make the case for adequate parking for this auditorium space with the parking spaces that we have in the parking structure.
Okay. Architecture.
So this is the basic plan. This is the basic architecture. It's a 1-story building. We kind of maintained a porch element. I've got renderings here which show what this would look like in the context. So this is looking more sort of from this is the driveway to the Oaks Preschool. So you're looking sort of northeast here. And then this is looking back southwest kind of at the building. FYI, as far as what it looked like before, this was the building that we had proposed before. on that site. So that's equivalent to that view. And then, so it basically, it had columns, front porch kind of an element. So we
Parking in the back? That's the parking structure in the back?
That's the parking structure in the back, yeah. And that is also, well, it doesn't show here because I have the trees, so that's equivalent to that view. And then that's the way this building looked in the other direction. So we've maintained the same setbacks as we had before. So we basically had the building came to this line and it had a front porch. This is basically, it's not showing up on here, but this is the column line.
You don't have a floor plan?
I do have a floor plan. The floor plan is right here. So these are the columns in front. So that's the actual setback. We're proposing this sandstone wall, which basically forms, which is a very traditional element along the streetscape, and creates the plinth that allows us to ramp up to get above base flood. And then from there we go on up in auditorium style seating. 2 feet up? How far up from the It's grade? Approximately 2 feet, yes. I think we've got it's probably only a little over 1 foot to get up to base flood.
And that's a planting area in between the two sides of the ramp, is that right?
Yes.
Just planting.
So this would be planting in here, that's right. And hopefully
planting.
Correct. And then this is a little dark green, but the intent here really is to emulate the materials that we're using on Cancer Center, so it would be that same lap siding. And we also, last word, and then I'll shut up. We're creating this little element in the back is basically where we would place mechanical equipment for the auditorium space.
So this roof sloping back to that wall?
That would slope back to that wall. I mean, we obviously would have to cricket in that area. But the idea is really to create this nice one-story massing off of the street, and then to have that higher portion, which would be the auditorium portion, set back. Obviously, we're proposing these clear stories for light inside that space.
Okay. Does that conclude the presentation?
I think so.
Great, thank you. There were some comments last time, and we'll get to that. We have one speaker slip, Hans van der Weyden.
Hi. I got a lot of my questions answered, actually. I'm completely new to this project. I live at West Junipero Street, basically across the street from the new building. It looks fine to me. Maybe the comment, which might be to your benefit or the Samson organization, is something that has irritated me for a long time, is the fact that there are these incredibly loud parties in the park. They're amplified music parties every weekend. I'm not talking about a couple of the festivals. But this has been an issue for us ever since we lived there. And they go on. I regularly measure 80 decibels in my yard. And they go on, especially during the late spring into early fall, almost every Saturday and Sunday afternoon. And, for us, it's really, really troubling, and all our neighbors are complaining about it. And I think it would impact, some of the new medical facilities that are planned in that whole area. And so I just tried to raise some awareness of that issue. It seems a little bit hard to get some traction in other areas of local governments, but maybe this helps.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So that's all I wanted to say to you.
Thanks for your comments. All right, questions from the board. Howard, are you ready with some questions, maybe?
I think you have another speaker. Do we?
We have,
Yeah,
oh, sorry,
she's
Howard,
filling
there's
it out.
another.
She's filling it out. From the public. You can just come up and fill it out after for them. It's okay. You
Come
wanna
on up.
Please come forward,
Yeah.
yes.
Are you coming up for this project?
Yes.
Okay, come on up.
Have a seat right here.
Right next to you. Do you get the feeling this is the first time I've done this?
Lucky you.
Yes. I'm Sunny Crandell, and I'm the director of the program next door, the Neighbor, the Oaks Parent-Child Workshop. And we've been following this project for a long time. We continue to have concerns about traffic that will be increased on Junipero. Our program serves maybe 64 families, so we have as many as 120 to 140 parents and 74 children enrolled 35 weeks fall to spring. We use the parking at Oak Park, and that requires that all our families, sometimes with strollers and younger children, cross the street and then walk to our program. So any increase in traffic, either during the construction or afterwards due to increased usage, impacts the safety of our families. So I'm concerned about traffic, and I wish that the traffic, we could get reassurance that it would all push out to the Pueblo side rather than the Junipero side.
Okay, thank you.
And then we'd love it if you'd let us use your auditorium Wednesday nights when we teach parent education.
Okay, Wednesday night, I'll put that down.
7:30 to 9:30. And we don't make a lot of noise. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'm sure the public knows that we're an aesthetic board and we're looking at mass bulk and scale and neighborhood compatibility, so the noise issues from the park and traffic issues is really not in our purview, but we still appreciate you coming and making your comments. Okay, questions from the board, Howard?
I have no questions at this point.
Briefly.
I only have one question. Just wondering, in the back of the building, was there a reason to use, is it plaster instead of the lap siding?
We did that just because we wanted to sort of have that mixed material like Cancer Center, and that's sort of the utilitarian end of the building. It doesn't have to be, but that's why we did it.
Are there any images of the
Yes, I have actually I have the elevations of the Cancer Center building, although they're a little bit hard to see. But basically the idea was to mimic this darker plaster that we have on the parking structure and on Cancer Center. And then use the same siding, up in front.
Okay.
Is that true to the color? That image?
I think these
It's a
could be
little darker, yeah. This is all darker than what that color is.
Is that all?
Yeah, that was it.
Courtney?
Flip back to the plan, please.
Site plan.
Site plan. Brian, did you get a look at this letter from your neighbor at 514 West Pueblo Street regarding grading issues?
Yeah, that's this.
et cetera?
That's this neighbor.
It's this neighbor.
Yeah.
So is that considered part of this project?
Well, it is, because this is going to be a substantial conformity determination for the overall project. As I mentioned at the beginning, all these lot lines go away. So yeah, those issues are related to this project, and he's talking about basically the grade difference in here.
Yep. So can you speak to
Chair?
those concerns, or can
Can I-
staff add to that?
Yeah, I'd like
Thanks,
to.
Kathy.
I did talk to the neighbor who submitted the letter, and I'll be meeting with them at the end of this week. But their concerns really don't relate to this, and I'd like to just focus on this new building. That's the only thing that you need to look at now. You will be getting, although maybe on consent, more of this project coming back to ABR later. But basically, no, these concerns aren't to be addressed today. It's a separate issue.
Okay.
Okay.
I can assure you that it's not much of a wall here that is going up. So
My only concern being we were provided this letter today as part of this review, and we have previously approved the landscaping in that area. So, some of their comments, I just want to make sure we're paying attention to that. But
As do all.
related to this project, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, Stephanie?
Is the reason you chose the planter in the middle of the ramp rather than planting in front with the planter in front of the ramp at the sidewalk? The reason for that is just.
I think it just because it allowed me to sort of ensconce that ramp behind the sandstone, and the sandstone, the low sandstone walls is a very traditional element right at the back of sidewalk in this neighborhood and a lot of neighborhoods. So that was really the reason.
Okay, that's it. There's no grading associated with the driveway, the new driveway, or is this a new driveway?
This is the driveway is in this location, but it is an entirely new permeable paving driveway, and there will be a little bit of additional grading, but not much.
Is it new associated with this part of the project, or is it always been part of
this hasn't changed.
Okay.
Yeah, the driveway has not changed.
And you said that the breast cancer research center, or whatever that is, breast cancer center, they're just going to vacate and they're going to go someplace else.
Exactly, because they were going to have to move anyway, and in discussions with them, they didn't want to have to move twice. They just wanted to find a new location and then stay there.
Okay. So we're just supposed to make comments so you can get substantial conformance from the Planning Commission on this building. Is that?
Well, staff is going to be making their recommendations, but it's going to go to Planning Commission for their comments on the substantial conformity determination, which ultimately is made by the Community Development Director. So Planning Commission will weigh in on it, and obviously the Planning Commission issues are those issues of use and the oaks and traffic and circulation and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think staff, we're looking for your comments relative to the building. From a massing standpoint, architecturally, does at least fit in.
Okay, and is the east elevation the same as the west, just inverted?
Yes.
And we don't have dimensions on the plan, but can you throw some dimensions on there?
Tell you what they are. If someone will give me a scale, I will be happy to. I
have an architectural scale?
I have a small one.
We need a bigger one.
Or we can measure off of here. We can measure off the site plan if we have an engineer's scale.
I'm just looking for the overall. Is it like?
I'm sorry that I don't know that off the top of my head. I'm guessing that it's about 40. Is this? Oh gosh! And naturally, it's at 3/16.
Yeah.
That's probably.
Good job. Good job, Brian.
And the elevations, are those at quarter? What are those?
3/16.
Oh, there's at 3/16. No, the elevations are at quarter.
Okay.
Oh, wait,
That
this is
one
at
is.
quarter.
No, it's all.
The perspective's at quarter.
Throw a scale on that.
The person who prepared these plans, I allowed her to go home to pick up her daughter, and I wish she would have stayed here for these comments. It does appear to be just a little less than 40 feet.
40 wide.
Yeah, it's about 30. It looks like about 38 feet. And then in this direction, it looks to be about 60 feet. So 38 by 60?
All right.
Approximately.
Thank you.
Thank you for this.
No problem.
All right, comments from the board?
Mr. Chair, I have one more comment, sorry.
Question?
Question. Brian, is this the...
That is the site.
That is the site?
Yeah.
Are you planning on retaining the existing stone wall, or will it be new?
That's one of the reasons. I mean, I should have mentioned that we want to try to reuse some of that stone, but it's going to end up being reworked because it's got a new entrance and whatnot. But that was the idea, was to emulate that stone that existed.
And tie it in with the other building, right?
It would be the same pattern as what we're using probably on Cancer Center, although I would like very much to reuse some of that stone that's there in this application.
Is that seat wall height? or does it need to be higher because of the ramp?
It's a little higher than what this wall is, but not much. I
Like
mean, you can,
seat wall
you
would
know.
be about 24 inches.
Yeah, and this appears to be probably about 30.
Okay.
Inches?
Yeah.
This table height, that's as tall as this table.
Will there be a handrail? Is it a true ramp, or is it just, you know?
No, it's 1 in 20, so it's not a
Oh, good.
it's not a ramp that requires a rail.
So you could lower it. Or is
I
it?
could lower that, yes. I
Or-
could lower this wall to be, that whatever that existing height is.
Okay.
So I don't need it for railing.
Okay.
Pretty low.
Right now it's put at the finished floor, so as
Right.
long as we
See that
resolve,
size.
and
How
I
it
think,
meets there.
Yeah, we can resolve that, so I could lower that.
Okay, comments? Howard? So we're just making comments? This is not project design approval?
No.
It's a very nice project. I like the design. It's very smooth, very sleek, very quiet. Some of the little things that were discussed about this wall, and I'm wondering why you would not want to take this wall line back into the building and actually create a kind of a base for the building all the way back. And regarding this contemporary box, which is kind of a bridge to the garage building, I would restudy that to make it maybe consider making it a part of the building you're designing, because what you've got going is really very elegant, and this little bridge is kind of an awkward thing, in my opinion. And be interested in the aluminum windows, what their finish is, and their detailing. And I don't know, the material of this little wall that wraps around the ramp is brick? Is it
Sandstone.
Sandstone.
Yeah, native sandstone.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. Amy?
Yeah, I think it's a nice project. It fits into the neighborhood, and it's acceptable as proposed.
Okay, thank you. Courtney?
I think it looks good. I don't have any further comments. I agree with what's been said.
All right. Stephanie?
I think it's a suitable project it's in substantial conformance. The only comment I have is in regards to the stone wall being seat wall height, to maintain that as a neighborhood compatibility issue, and would concur with Howard's materials comment about the rear project. And perhaps if you want to change materials, it could be board and bat or something in the craftsman vernacular, material-wise. And I don't know about anyone else, but I think that the clear stories on the front elevation, street elevation, should be removed and just maintained on the sides.
You do?
Yes.
Just blank, huh? You'd rather just see it blank.
Yep. It's quieter.
I feel differently about that. How do other board members feel about the windows on the front facing the street at the second floor or second clear story?
I agree with Stephanie.
I think they look awkward, but might be a good idea for solar outlets. I don't know. Aesthetically, they seem like they're kind of jammed in there.
If I did that, then I'd probably want to pull these off the corner, wouldn't I?
Right.
Yeah, a little bit. I think I agree with Stephanie.
Okay. So you want to make a motion, Stephanie, please?
Sure.
Guess you and I lost on that one.
Yep.
The board feels that the project is in substantial conformance, and that the architecture is appropriate to the neighborhood. The scale of the building is appropriate for the neighborhood, and the only comments the board has regarding the architecture were that the stone wall should be a seat wall height for a more neighborhood feel to the building, and the clear-story windows should be eliminated from the front elevation, the street elevation.
Okay, we need a seconder.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's indefinite continuance back to the full board.
We were just here for comments, I thought.
Indefinite continuance.
It's indefinite, okay. Indefinite continuance
All
to
in
the full
favor?
board.
Okay, we got an aye on that.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Go ahead.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Howard.
Yes.
Howard.
So he's brought in some drawings, right?
I just brought in an unfolded set, so
Okay.
you take the rest back. Please.
1298 Coast Village Road is item number 4.
Fine.
This is final review being requested. It's last reviewed August 18th, 2014. This is a proposal to demolish an existing gas station and service bays and construct a new 3-story mixed-use building on an 18,000 square foot lot.
I'm fine. I can see this.
Okay. You want to present with this one?
Yeah.
Whoa.
You want one over these? Over there? Yeah, sure. It's called the left wing over here. Or the right wing over here. Right wing? Depending on where you're sitting. Sit on the other side.
How you doing, Sam?
Good, Suzanne, how are you?
Good, thanks.
That's all right. Welcome.
This is.
Your names, please. Hi.
Yeah. Hi, Sam Maphis, landscape architect on the project.
And Jeff Gorell, Lindvik and Minor Architects.
I think we probably had some minutes from last time. Thank you. So, yes, this was 8/18. All right. We had a few comments. Continued indefinitely, the Planning Commission. We successfully completed that journey, I trust.
Yes, we did.
Quite a while back. Good. And our comments were, a majority of the board recommends to the Planning Commission that the project be found in substantial conformance with the original approved design, as the overall building footprint does not increase the building size, bulk, and scale. Number 2, the board found the exterior third-floor balcony additions along the north elevation to be an enhancement and appropriate design additions. Number 3, one board member was concerned about the landscape plan and requested preservation of the existing trees and the understory planting of the existing ficus plant. Landscape plan to show the difference between the planting area and the concrete area. It's a 6-0 vote. Now, you probably have details and all of that to present as well.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. And that's what we're here for, the requesting final, and we've got lots and lots of detail.
Great. We'd love that.
So I brought this as a reminder. This was the board had requested that we go with more earth tone colors. And then on the front facing Coast Village Road, that maybe we have a little bit darker tone here and then lighter tone as you go around. So that's where we're at. And you go around to Olive Mill Road, and then this is what you're looking at. And we've got the 2-story and 1-story, and then it steps back. So what we're here for today is to show you color boards and then kind of where we're headed with the detail and so forth. So what I'm going to, let's see if I can show you this in a simple way. It's hard to find the right plaster color. We're going to use a Merlex integral color plaster. And the best I could do was to show you this, and it's not going to be modeled, but we are going to have the lighter color here. That'd be the majority of the building, and then this portion here in the front entry then would be a little bit darker, probably not quite that dark. But then that kind of goes along with what the board was requesting, and I think that it'll be fairly nice. And then we're going to switch things up and we can look in the elevations, but essentially the window colors are the sage, kind of not a seafoam green, more of a sage color, and that'll be the majority of the windows that go around. As we move around the corner, I'm going to use the Santa Barbara blue awnings, and then to switch things up a little on this commercial side here, I'm proposing to use the Clay Canyon color, and then with an olive colored awnings across the top. Two-piece mission tile, wrought iron, light fixtures, balconies, and so forth are going to be the black with a little green mixed in. And then, of course, the wood balconies that we have will be this color, stain, and I think that pretty much covers that. And these are the light fixtures that we're proposing. This would be the main fixture at the front entry. And then we'll, around Olive Mill Road on the more residential side, then I would have this type of a fixture. And then in our courtyard and other spots within the front location, we'll go with a light fixture like this with a seated glass. And generally speaking, I think one of the comments was to look at the interior courtyard on the second floor. And I don't know that everybody has seen that before, but you're probably familiar with, by the mission. And we're trying to get this kind of a flavor. You'll be looking at some wrought iron details. So I just thought I'd bring these in to show you. Some of the Olive Mill Road and so forth will have areas for planter pots. And we've got this kind of a detail. It'll be solid in the back, but this kind of inlay of 2-inch thick tile. We're trying to go very, very authentic and traditional with everything. Wrought iron details. You see the awnings. We'll be doing something along this line. Even going so far as the driveway down that you'll see as we get into this on the upper side. This is one that I have done before on another home, and we'll have these kind of planter pots set up. And then we're going to carry the detail through on the elevation. We're not showing downspouts and so forth, but they'll have nice leader heads and this type of brackets holding on copper gutters. So I'm showing you those to give you a general feel of what we're trying to achieve, all smooth trowel, slightly undulated plaster. And then, let's see, there's a lot of the stuff up front that nobody's interested in. So I'll take you to the ground floor plan, and this is Coast Village Road and then Olive Mill Road, and there's two wonderful existing eucalyptus trees that a lot of you might be familiar with. Thanks. And then some of the things we're interested in now, this is pretty much what you've seen before. We have removed the fountain here. We'll stub out and perhaps do a fountain later, but it's probably not appropriate to have a fountain out there at this time. So we'll have more landscaping and a couple of benches, bike stands here. Sam will be talking about the landscaping later, the plantings, raised stone planters against the building. We'll have gas meters, residential gas meters here. Hide those with landscaping. We've got the small backflow preventers that sit about that high off the ground. Planter here. In-ground water meters here. Bus stop here. That'll be whatever MTD asks us to do. And then we've got a transformer here that's screened by a higher wall around here. Some landscaping there. Potted plants here and a railing. And this is the driveway that goes down and under here into the basement below. We've got a paseo that runs through here off of Coast Village Road. You access the commercial spaces here. You can take the stair up to the residential units. There's 6 units up above. There'd be 4 on the courtyard level, and then 2 that will be up above that. And so you can access those through here or through the elevators, the basement below. We'll go 2 at a time, so we've got an information plan and a dimension plan. So this takes you up to the second level, and then we have 4 units here, and they stair from the Paseo up. I was talking about it takes us into this courtyard where Sam will speak to this. We're going to have a lovely fountain here and a flagstone. That very nice wrought iron planters that I was talking about would be along here. And patios facing out. Trying to go quick to get into detail. Yeah, quick. But I know that a lot of folks haven't seen this before. So this is our 3rd floor that wraps around here. You've got a unit here and a unit here. And then we have the 2nd floor roof that wraps around Olive Mill Road, wraps around facing Coast Village Road, and then there's the Caldwell Banker building here, so this wraps around through here. And then these are outdoor patios. Door and window schedules. So we've got aluminum clad, traditional. I mentioned the 2 different colors that we'd be using. And then in addition to that, we have some wood doors that will be painted. I think this is probably hiding the trash enclosure facing Olive Mill Street. And then we've got wrought iron detailed balcony or doors. Elevations. So now we get into some of the detail, which is what this meeting is about. So these are our chimney caps, and then we've got those keyed in here, as you can see. We follow around. Coast Village Road, Olive Mill Road, and to highlight some of the pictures and that I showed you with these balcony details, and we can come back to these, but everything's keyed in. We're going to have these wonderful downspouts, and we can always come back to look at whatever you want to see.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Next sheet is this is the west-facing elevation, the north-facing elevation, and here's an elevation of those planters that I talked about. Details for awnings, our leader head, downspouts, our main entry here with the wrought iron and real sandstone, and then I'd shown you the light fixture that we would have. Here would be this guy right here. Everything's keyed in. Building sections, here's details. The wooden balconies that are facing Coast Village Road are detailed like this. Olive Mill Road, and then also on the west elevation on some of the patios, this is that laid-in 2-inch thick tile. I should point out, yep, so we got these courtyard elevations that you can see that we've carried through on the sections. More sections, more balcony details. This one's facing Coast Village Road. I think these are facing Olive Mill Road. A beam end details. More wrought iron details. I think this is on facing Coast Village Road up on the 3rd level where they pocket in. More sections showing you the interior courtyard and so forth, and I showed you the picture of like up on Plaza Rubio where we're going to try to get that kind of flavor into the courtyard. Details of that planter for detail. This is the detail of the clearance sign going down into the garage where we're going to have the 8'2", so we'll make something nice out of that. More details. Corwells, I've got this detail is right at that ground level parking, so we'll have these big large planter pots, and again Sam will speak to those. Where we do have downlights, like I don't know if you noticed on the corner of Coast Village Road and Olive Mill, we have the building curving around, and so we have these windows that go around, so we'll highlight those windows with this kind of surround. highlight with the light. They'll have those surrounds.
The soffit light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. And then these, let me get past here. This 4 series are enlarged floor plans, which you're probably not interested in. Okay. Well, let me get past this. This is interior elevations getting started. And then these are reflected ceiling plans getting started. Let me get past the 6s. Okay, 7s, if you're not interested in this, this is our enlarged stair plans. All stuff that we need to get into the building department. Okay, here we go. Now we get back to the 8 series, and then this gives you all of our window details, primary details, roof details, valleys, fascias, kicker braces. This is the stair here that's facing Olive Mill Road, so that's going to be quite charming, I think. What else do we have? On this sheet, I guess that's it. Get to the next sheet. These are all of the interior courtyard door elevations and details that will accompany those, all very traditional. We wanted to focus in on the wrought iron doors. We have those here. And then other key details. All of our commercial and walls facing out are quite thick in the commercial, and we've got them recessed with thick walls on the residential also. They're all very traditional that we're going to, it's going to be very nice. And then this is our civil plans that you may not be interested in. I brought them anyway because it's required, but I did show you where the water meters were backflow, and the fire riser we actually have inside right here, so we won't be needing to hide that on the outside. We're hiding that on the inside. Drainage plan in the basement. And then Sam will get into, I don't know if you have your own presentation.
Yeah, I'll take this set of plans, have a few more sheets on it, be ready, unless they want to ask questions on the architecture.
Yeah, if you want to go backwards.
Why don't we take the whole thing, take the landscaping also.
Okay.
Look at it.
Thanks, Jeff. So as you mentioned, one of the requirements was certainly to preserve and take care of these 3 nice eucalyptus trees that border really on the public right-of-way, but these are part of the project and always have been. They'll be protected. This large row of ficus trees, the ficus nittas, have been there for many, many years, and they intend to stay. We think that buffer is a real strong piece to our north.
The mic.
Sorry about that. Is that better? So the ficus trees that were mentioned, those are protected, and we'll have some understory planting, but there's not a lot of area because the roots are pretty strong and tenacious in there. But as Jeff had mentioned, everything that we talked about in our preliminary approvals is being followed. The hardscape really is kind of matching many of the details that you see currently on State Street in downtown Santa Barbara. So this is a brick herringbone. That'll be all of the sidewalks. We will have some inlaid hardscape for the main paseo that comes into the elevator and into the parking structure. So that is an example of kind of what these steps and what this sandstone is going to look like. We think the downstairs paseo will be more of a square pattern, a little more angular and formal. And then upstairs, we think we'll go to a more random pattern, so it's a little more residential up in the upper courtyard. As Jeff mentioned, much of the embellishments are, of course, in the main planters that I'll get into on the planting plan, but we do have accent pots where we can on corners and areas that won't interrupt the circulation, benches that framed a fountain, but I really think that there's enough sidewalk width that we did want kind of to slow down the visitor and slow down the people walking on Coast Village to be able to appreciate some of the detailing on this building. Lots of screening, but I'll get into that in the planting plan. These are just images that I wanted you to look at that we drove the project design from the very beginning, and this gives you the flavor that we're in keeping with. I'll move to the next plan. not so interested in, but we have carried it to an irrigation plan that is very, very efficient in terms of water supply. It's MP rotators and drip and deep watering systems for all the trees. So being very water-wise throughout our design, both for water and for the plantings. Our big planter areas consist of the one on Olive Mill and certainly the one on Coast Village Road. We're utilizing palms, we're utilizing jacarandas here, and those two spots, the only two canopy trees. We're utilizing Kentia palms here, and here. These raised planters allow us to create some softness against the building with this cordyline and this Howea forsythiana Kentia palm. Because of the downstairs basement, we really had to create our own planters on the grade level because there just was not enough soil. So this is all in grade, but these planters up against the building, we built up 28 inches or more to try to get some real soil for softening this elevation. And the images of the plantings, certainly you know about most of them, but these are the kinds of palms that will be interspersing here, here, and here, and here. We also have some Washingtonia robustas that repeat what's happening in the median. So as you drive to the median in the intersection of Olive Mill, there's about 6 of those large Washingtonia Mexican fan palms. So the idea is to create kind of a palm grove, if you will, from the center into this area, and also to add some height and some softness up against the 3-story structure. There'll be Washingtonia robustas, not Guadalupe, but these are the kinds of things that we're going to be planting. The Pittosporum crassifolia nana, the Onigoxanthus, a lot of aloes. We wanted to play with a kind of a group of succulents underneath with the soap aloe and the blue wave agave. We also have a Myoporum, the real low pink Myoporum that is a very clean and very tough and drought-tolerant ground cover that borders everything into the center. So the plants are all kind of in masses in the middle, up underneath the trees, and then the ground cover is something that lays down flat and very prostrate up against the brick sidewalk. Let's see, goes, but we do have agaves, the New Zealand flax, and the kangaroo paws. As Jeff mentioned, we do have pots, lots of pots. I'll get into lighting in a minute. So the flavor of the kinds of plantings that we'll have, I think, will be striking in the windows, underneath the windows, not competing with what's in the windows, something of that nature, what might be against here in a lower planter. These are the kinds of plants that we'd be putting in the cordyline and the flax and the sedums. So we have a selection on the plant list of all these container plants, and we'll be intermixing those. Same kind of thing upstairs. If you look at the courtyard, been challenged for planter soil. So the courtyard upstairs is a center fountain that has probably a pot that'll be something like this, of a very exciting glaze that'll just spill water down. It's really the only fountain that we'll have on the project. We do have another tiled fountain here that will be probably not water now or ever. It'll be more succulents. It'll be actually a planter. All these pots, as I showed you, will be combining strappy plantings and other plantings that'll be tolerant to shade, because this is 2-story in here. There'll be a lot of shade in the interior. Jeff pointed out that there's pots downstairs. We'll have shade planting in there. That's on the north side. So there'll be combinations of succulents and combinations of things.
Are you going to do that?
I didn't see that. Look at that. Very good perception. So that's the upstairs courtyard. I wanted to show you one more thing and get some input at this point. Planting details. I want to present some lighting at this time. We've got one street light that's required, and most likely it'll be this pedestrian one that's used in the city of Santa Barbara, because it'll be in the right-of-way over by the bus stop. There's a potential of another one that might be used, but this is the one that we're required to use. Other lighting, I think, will be low wall wash type lights that'll be up against the building, but more to light the plants and to silhouette against some of the walls that have no windows. So this is an FX light. It'll be LED. It'll be on a dimmer. So the ability is just to kind of wash the building and add some ambient light to the pedestrian walkway. This kind of light, we're hoping, and this is something that we kind of want input on, but I think that the 2 eucalyptus that are on Olive Mill and Coast Village Road are amazing pieces of living sculpture, and to hit those with any kind of light in a soft way would really be something quite handsome and quite artistic. We will have lights, as Jeff showed, on the building, but I think these 2 pieces here beg for some kind of night light, as well as this ficus row back here, because this is on the north side. It's going down into a garage. I'd like to wash this with a real low LED light that allows for that whole back north side to be lit and very safe and bright at night. So
Can you show us the fixture for the youths?
Yeah, that would be this one here.
Is it that one?
So it would be completely shrouded. The lamp itself would be down about 2 inches inside the cylinder, and it would be light at a point where it would be shooting up into the branching structure.
And how would you wash the ficus?
The same way, Stephanie, with this type of fixture. See that?
How many and how close?
At each tree, 1, 2, 3,
Okay.
4, 5. So the intent would be to be up. This is such a wall that you wouldn't see any light washing onto the north neighbor because they're so dense. And there's a 6-foot, 8-foot wall.
6 foot.
6-foot block wall here. So there wouldn't be any glare. It'd be completely under and shining up and just glowing in the green leaf structure of those ficus. So that's the presentation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public would like to comment on this project? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to questions from the board. Howard?
One question that I remember from the first review many years ago had to do with this concrete deck discrepancy between the lower level parking circulation and the upper level, the site level parking. And I believe it shows up on initially on sheets A2, A1, A1.1, and A2.0. Underneath, there is this curve that goes down like that, and you see that this is the edge of the wall. So over this area here, there is a concrete, unplanted area.
That's correct.
And I'm wondering if anything could be done to plant that. It's strong as hell. So,
It's Howard. It's very, very strong, but it's back in the corner where nobody sees it. I mean,
so
you could put.
Is a pit there, right?
It's not a pit. It actually is raised as you come under. As you come under, going down into the basement, that to get head clearance at that location, the concrete lid has to come up. So it'll be raised above grade there in order to get your head clearance underneath. I mean, you could put potted plants or something like that back, but nobody sees it.
Well, the neighbors see it over here, and also some of the occupants see it from their rooms, looking down. You have taken a lot of trouble to cover the parking, so it look on a nice tile roof there. Mm-hmm. And I would just think that would be kind of finishing the frame of the building or the frame of the lot. It would be very easy to do, but it's just one thing that you have every other Santa Barbara experience of architecture in this building, and it's marvelous. It's a great. That's just not a question anymore, though. This is now a comment.
Correct.
So I have to stop.
Thank you, Amy.
I have a question on the colors.
Or the elevation. Okay.
Yeah. Is this piece also the darker color, or is this actually the lighter?
Lighter.
Okay.
Yep.
So then that answers my question, because you're just doing this different awning basically on
that's
the darker
correct.
portion.
Yep.
Okay.
No other questions?
Nope.
Okay,
That was it.
Courtney.
Only question I had was related to the jacaranda that you've got within the parkway? Just in terms of site visibility, is that located in a good spot? It might, impede views. I
For
don't know.
safety, I think I
Yeah.
was very conscious of that corner being viewed to all those different 5 points. It's a very
Right.
tricky intersection, as we all
Mhm.
know. The one axial point of that one jacaranda, for me at least, was at the long end of Jameson, or the street coming from south to north.
Mhm.
You'd focus on that tree instead of just on the architecture. It'd be a kind of a layered
design.
softening
Mm.
along. I'm trying to work the layering of both the complement of architecture and landscape architecture. So this tree sitting here is directly lined up to that long street.
I see. Okay.
So there was a purpose to it. But everything else, and I'm very concerned about people seeing across all these little areas, especially for pedestrians,
Pedestrian safety.
is all the low agaves and all the low myoporums. So there's really no stacking of material that, sitting in a car, you look right past the trunk.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay. Stephanie?
No question.
Okay. I just have one question. Rather than me searching through the plan, so the balcony that's up above this corner, Jeff, it has a straight corner right here? Is that right, or is it rounded?
It's straight on the, let's get to the floor plan, yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Looks like it's got a curve on it.
A little curve. Yeah, you've got a curve here, and then this breaks here, like that. So
Starts
then
the
there's your
radius.
patio.
Okay.
And it sticks up maybe, I think it's about that high.
It's like 2 feet or so.
Is it on? Is this radius on this with the same center point as that radius?
It's been so long ago, I couldn't tell you.
This is kind of a question comment, but it seems to me that if you just rounded that more, you would get less pinching of all these tiles here. Get a broader and maybe more of a better relationship to the curve down below.
I think that's a good observation.
All right. So comments, Howard.
Well, my only comment is that one area that's just a raw concrete piece of building that sticks out, and I think something should be done to either cover it or enhance it. I mean, maybe landscaping is the wrong thing, but maybe terracotta tile or something, just so that it's some kind of it's just finished. Seems a little raw. Other than
seen
that,
somewhere on the elevations?
Actually, we can.
Basement, right?
It's a very interesting situation.
Yeah.
A3.2 is a section for that portion there. And is this an existing wall on the site? The little difference in grade there between neighbor and you and yourself?
Oh, from the right.
I think that's what he's talking
So
about.
that's an existing wall.
Yeah, I think he's got it shown on the wrong side. I think it's on the neighbor's side.
And the footing goes that way? Or the footing also goes?
That's a field
Mystery.
discovery. Yeah, when we dig it up, we'll
So,
find
but
out.
the trees, the row of trees that you're going to preserve are planted at this level here?
Howard, I think you need to come over here and look at this plan so the camera can see it, please. And other board members can understand.
3.2, we were looking at this section right here. This wall, I'm told, is not here. It's actually on the neighbor's property. This grade here is the grade that now all the row of trees along there is at.
Trees are at, yes.
This is where the building pushes up in order to get the ramp clearance. This is poured concrete wall there. This is a tile roof that covers parking beyond. And so in this area, you have a kind of industrial area. It's true, it's not seen, it's not used much, but anyway, it's a part of the building. And every other part of the building is just so beautifully treated. I think that something belongs there that would, at least, instead of a piece of raw concrete jetting out of the ground. So that would be my one comment. Everything else about the building, the colors, the wrought iron work, and all the architectural experiences of running through this fabulous structure are wonderful.
How does that look in plan? Where can you show us in plan where that
Yes,
occurs?
A2.0. That's the tile roof that covers the parking.
Is that just in this section right here, Jeff?
It's right here.
It offsets back.
I'm sorry, one point says it's 2 points.
Here we go.
It's actually this piece right here, one,
That's right here.
just here?
Yeah, you're going to get a little, it's going to get more and more dirt as you come this way, of course.
Is this a sloping piece of concrete or just stepping
No,
down?
this is the
That's level.
concrete here.
That's the exposed
Right
portion.
here is the exposed portion of
Yeah.
concrete, and then I have it shielded by a higher
Yeah.
wall if you look at that elevation.
And so this X marks the spot here is below grade?
Yeah.
At grade.
It's probably not much dirt at all here, and by the time you get that back here, it's,
I was looking at this section here, which doesn't show that.
yeah, but your point is, we are going to make all of this concrete,
Yeah.
because we've got to get drainage out of here, and it's just a tough spot to try to
The
landscape.
bottom of the basement is a cistern. So we have to collect our stormwater and use it for irrigation and pump it out. As part
And
of
is it visible
the
to the
swamp.
neighbors, that area, the concrete area that Howard's referring to?
I really don't think it is
No.
because of that wall of ficus, and you know how ficus nitida can become just an absolute barrier of dark green leaf, and that's what that entire north boundary is ficus. The intention is to keep it.
Do you have any other comments?
No.
Amy?
I like this project. I think it's really appropriate for the area. It's been really thoughtfully designed, and I think that all the color choices and the details really work well together. So I think it's acceptable as proposed.
Thank you.
Courtney?
I think it looks great. I appreciate the applicant's attention to detail. I like the landscape palette. I think I like the attention to the streetscape as well. I wanted to comment on that. That's all I have.
Stephanie?
I agree. I think it's a beautiful project. It's very well detailed, and it's going to be beautiful. The only thing I'm not convinced on are the colors. I think I'd like to see a larger color board with actual material colors. If you could, that could be something that could be brought in on consent. But I don't know how the other board members feel, but I'm not sure I'm sold on the idea of the two different awning colors. And I'd need to see more detail with regard to the stucco color variation. It's not clear as presented.
Okay.
I'm sympathetic to that remark about the two tones of the awnings
Okay.
and the
All right.
windows color.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is it would be a final approval with comments that and I would just add the comment about the putting a larger radius on the second floor balcony at the street corner, and to return to the consent calendar with larger samples, more accurate and larger samples of what, or color representations of what the two tones of exterior plaster are going to be.
And awning colors, and window colors, and paint
And
colors,
larger-
and stain colors.
Go ahead. Why don't you tell us what you'd like to see?
Larger actual paint colors that we normally ask for on color boards.
Okay.
Samples?
Yes, color samples. We ask for fabrics. We
Fabric.
ask for, the actual paint chip, how the color or the stain will look on wood that you're using, how things are actually going to be represented.
Okay.
And I think this is a prominent site. It's important enough to get it right the first time.
Okay.
Is this coming back to us, or is it going to consent?
The color board, I'm suggesting it could go to consent calendar.
I suggest a consent.
Mr. Chair, I have one request, is we're up against a code change, and I need to get into the building department before the 1st. If we could get if I'm hearing right, if we're going to get a final approval, then to return to consent for
details.
detail.
Right.
For these items that you're mentioning. Yeah.
That's right. So who would like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
It's Howard
second it.
and Stephanie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you want to come back this coming Monday? Will you be ready by then to consent?
No, I'm going to go on vacation. I haven't done that in a year.
Bad timing, Jeff.
It's not till the 1st. He'll be back on the 29th.
To get there, Susan.
Wise words there.
Yeah. It's gonna look nice.
I was trying to get these materials and colors.
See, I might have my stuff ready, so you guys can take those.
I know. Just order them. Just order the samples.
Okay.
They'll get yours.
We're on to
before you leave.
project number 5. We are after this one, I'm afraid. 133 South Salina Street.
I don't think you had any gray hair.
No, 927 East Haley Street.
Oh. 927 East Haley.
Good job. Very nice.
Project is eligible for project design approval. It was last reviewed on March 16th. It's a proposal to demolish an existing
You can, yeah.
garage and construct a new
Several
two-story residence, or new, accessory dwelling and attached garage.
Thank you.
So in the board's last review, we had a number of comments. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi. Your names, please.
My name is Diana Agostia. I'm the designer. And,
Ward Bailey?
Hi. So what I'd like to do, if I can, is go through these items one by one.
Okay.
And then you can tell us how you address them. That
Sure.
work? Okay. So the motion was continuous to the full board with these comments. Number 1, provide grading and drainage plan based on the actual survey of the site.
so we have sheet A 0.02 with grading and drainage plan.
What is the sheet number?
0.02.
0.02.
Okay, well, a grading plan would show, for example, the finished floor level of the house in relation to the exterior grade. Would identify, the height of the grade at the rear of the property and all along the driveway, so you could see what you're actually getting the flows that you need. It would identify catch basin, elevation, and so on. I'm not seeing that information.
Existing topography.
Existing and proposed topography. So we'll leave that as a question mark. We'll go on. Number 2, provide photographs of the east and west side yards of the new building.
I have a board here with the photographs. I also have the photographs, individual photographs, if this is easier.
Okay, so this is obviously looking down the driveway past residence, existing residence at the front.
That's correct.
This is looking that way.
Mm-hmm.
This is back here somewhere. Where's this? Or it's from here looking back towards the front? Is that what that is? No. It's looking. Where is that shot from?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So this shot is taken from here, looking this way. And if we look at the site plan, you will see that this is the existing garage, and in the back of the garage we have a storage shed.
Which is right here.
So, which is about here.
Oh, which is getting taken out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. You want to switch?
I think the other area that we had concerns about was here. We kind of wanted to see how well this was screened. This area of the is that in one of these photographs?
Yes. So that would be this over here.
Okay, and where are those shots taken from, please?
This particular one is taken from here, looking this way. And this one is actually this area. So from here, looking this way.
Okay. All right. Number 3, decrease the amount of permeable paver in the walking areas where not necessarily required.
I will go to the site plan. And the site plan shows here how we decreased the amount of permeable pavers. We are using stepping stones right now. And in between there will be vegetation. The Amondia, it's probably the best. It really does really well in between stepping stones.
Okay. It looks like you added these ribbons. I don't remember those being.
Yes, yes, we added the ribbons.
Is this planting as well?
Yes, that's planting area.
Existing.
That's existing.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Provide a complete and detailed landscape plan with a signed landscape compliance statement.
So here is the landscape plan, and we provided a landscape compliance statement. We provided that when we submitted the plans.
Okay, it's on a separate sheet somewhere. It's supposed to be on the plans, but.
I didn't know I'm supposed to put it on the plans.
Okay.
We did provide it, though.
All right. Number 6, study various options to increase the plaster sidewalls at the garage, and particularly at the entry.
Okay. So that would be sheet. You can see here. And also in the elevation.
That's a big improvement.
Okay.
It used to be 2, right?
Yes. Yes. So.
All right. Number 7, study ways to break up the long expanse of the header over the second floor deck area and to break up the second floor decorative indentation. Looks like you did that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Enlarge the corbel details for the cantilever at the front of the garage and provide a thicker wall for the details.
So here we enlarge the corbel detail, and so
cantilever at the front of the garage.
Okay, and that is we eliminated the cantilever at the front of the garage. Let me show you. You can see it better in the perspective. There is no more cantilever here.
Okay.
So these are lines. Okay.
So I thought the corbels would have been the ones that,
We eliminated the
They're here.
corbels.
She put them here.
okay.
Yes.
We didn't, you never had corbels here at this wall?
We eliminated them.
Okay. Number 9, the board finds the double cantilever as designed inconsistent with the architecture. That was
So
his
there is
area.
no more double
this-
cantilever.
There's no line there,
There
right?
is no more, no line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 10, provide typical eave and rake details. Do not match the front house and include a deeper eave on the new building.
So this is sheet A 9.01. So this is the rake detail. This is, and this is the eave detail.
Okay. Number 11, the board prefers metal windows over vinyl windows or superior quality vinyl windows with appropriate detailing.
So we decided to go for the vinyl windows. These are superior quality vinyl windows. And the vinyl windows just work really well with the Title 24. So that's one of the reasons we want to go for that instead of aluminum windows. But these are a superior quality. So these are the windows that we are going, and the doors that we are going to use.
In white?
In white, yes.
Do you have detail for a window detail?
Yes, I do.
Is that a wood piece over the top?
Actually, that shouldn't be wood. That it's represented incorrectly. That shouldn't be. It should be vinyl.
It should be vinyl? That's a vinyl piece?
No, it's not vinyl. Sorry about that. Initially, we were thinking about wood, and then we changed to vinyl. And actually, that detail could be redone, and we could have a stucco detail that matches the front building. The stucco could come this way.
Mm-hmm.
That should be redone.
Okay. Number 12 was study raising the plate and pitch heights of the one-story roofs on the east and west sides.
So we raised the pitch considerably.
What page is that?
That is a 4.02. Before the pitch was 3 in 12, and now we have 5 in 12.
The view from the front, if you could just see that. Okay. All right. So questions from the board? Howard.
Yes, I'm still not able to follow your plans. So I'm referring to the coordinates that you use, the numbering system and the lettering system. And I'm looking at sheet A 2.01.
That is the floor plan.
That's it, floor plan, upstairs and downstairs and upstairs.
Correct.
So I'm looking at a corner that appears to be, this is in the ground, on the ground floor, and here it is,
Can you
F.
point it out over?
F. Oh, yes. Yeah. So, just help me out here.
Mm-hmm.
This piece right here
Yes.
is shed roof, right? That's
Exactly.
a little piece of garage.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
So then you have a piece that sticks out. This is this balcony,
That's
which goes back into the building as well. That's going back in here. So this portion, this porch, is actually dividing the load between this garage header here, and comes all the way over to, almost makes it to column line 4. That's 4G.
Okay.
4G. So this piece sticks out a little bit past that second floor. But I don't see that happening here. This is like, if this piece sticks out 1 foot here, there's a piece of building that is not explained here, not covered.
That's actually like this, I think.
Yeah.
That's what your second
Yes.
floor looks like.
Yeah.
That's the way it's drawn here, is it will go like that.
Right. So then we move over to here, this corner, upstairs here, and we go back a distance, and then it cuts back in here, and that's this distance. So this porch actually goes back into the building.
Somewhere back here, this,
Yeah.
there's something.
So it's going in like this.
Is there a reason why that does that?
Yeah. So your roof goes in like this, and it's going along here somewhere. We're on along 4.
Okay.
Along 4, like that.
Okay.
So what I'm seeing, I'm not able to follow because your building is not fit one floor on top of the other, and it doesn't match up the corners. Little corners are sticking out here.
We can look on the elevations.
So I would say that those are my questions. So I would actually ask that you study the dimensions of this building and get the floors to either line up, or if they don't line up, to see what's going on there. So I can't read the plans.
Okay, so.
Floor plans are not readable. Okay, we'll just, before you comment on that, we'll go to, does that conclude your comments?
That's my first question, but I'm going to stop with that question there.
4, 5. Okay. So 4.
Amy, do you have any questions?
I do not.
No? Courtney?
Can you show me where your new planting is going on the plan?
Okay, so the new planting is going to be happening here, here, here. Here, there is a new planter here that basically stops, acts like a barrier for the car. We have new planting here and new planting over here. These are, most of them are existing, but there is some new as well. So on the landscape plan, I notated what is existing and what is new.
And are you removing any existing trees?
No.
No. And then in terms of your hardscape, just so I'm clear, you've got existing stepping stones here with
Yes.
Demondia.
Yes.
Stained concrete.
Yes, and with the Amondia in between, I mean the island.
Stamped concrete.
The stamped, yes, this is going to be stamped concrete.
And then in the back, your new stepping stones with Demondia. Will
Yes.
those match the same stone as your existing in the front?
It will match.
Okay.
It will match. And on the material board, I included the kind of stepping stones that we are going to be using, which is going to match also the stained concrete.
Okay. Are you aware that the pampas grass is considered highly invasive?
I'm not aware that it's highly invasive, but
Can you show me where you're proposing that?
let's see, right here.
Just the one?
Yes, just one.
Is there one there also?
Let me see. New white pampas. Yes, it's here, and I have a plant legend. So the white pampas goes.
I see it there. Thank you.
Stephanie?
I thought that we had talked about the last time, one of the comments was to move some of these windows a little farther off the corners, give them a little more plaster, more traditional detailing. It would be, this is very tight here in the corner, and this is a very tight proximity, the window and the door together. They should either be molded together, or the window should be made smaller, or doors to give more plaster surrounding the each door and window. I believe we mentioned it previously, and it doesn't look like it's changed.
Okay, I did that in certain areas. I suppose here we have the downspout, so we can reduce this. I suppose even more.
I think we may have referred to specific areas rather. This is more or less on the back.
Yes.
Back side
That's
yard.
correct.
So.
All right.
Other questions?
Nope.
Okay. I just had one question about. Oh, I see. This is a covered porch now. The actual door is back here. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then you're seeing through to that plaster wall. This is that wall. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so comments, Howard.
Well, one comment would be about the dimensioning and the coordination of floors and dimensions.
If we look at the elevations, we will see that actually the plans are correct. I can go through all of them, all the issues that you mentioned.
Okay, that makes me even more worried.
Okay.
But the other thing is, in this building in the back, we had several comments about, you've got a huge span there with 3 garage doors and no columns, and you have a clear span, a clear opening here that's very uncharacteristic of the style of architecture that you are using.
Succinct comment, please.
Yeah, I'm coming around to saying that we have no structural plan here, framing plans or anything like that. And I really think that when you sit down with your structural engineer, that your design is going to change.
Okay,
really
so the comment is...
have a hard time making, approving or moving it forward without knowing what is going to stay and what's going to change.
So you'd like to see a structural plan?
I would like, in this case, yes.
At this point?
At this point, you don't respond. We just make our comments, and then we'll give you a motion. Yeah, so. Okay, Amy.
I guess I agree with Howard's comment on the floor plan, just having some more clarification on the overlay of the first and second floor. And then I think as far as the window detail, it would look nice having the plaster kind of come down to the window instead of putting wood or vinyl.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the plaster would look nice.
Okay.
So those are all my comments.
Courtney?
I don't have any comments.
Okay.
Defer to you guys for the architectural
Okay.
this time.
Stephanie?
I would like to see the windows recessed.
I'm sorry, the
windows recessed on a more traditional Spanish style architecture that you kind of changed it to. That would be a more traditional detail.
Okay.
Where the plaster wraps in, and the windows are placed to the interior face of the wall flush rather than the exterior face.
Okay.
Just making sure that the walls all stack and we know exactly what's being represented in the elevations matches the plans. It's important that we all understand the buildings.
Okay.
Is this just a leftover, these two little, are those wood posts, or what are those?
No, it's actually stucco. It's just 3D shadow.
All right. So I'm just going to summarize comments and also the ones that carried over from our motion last time. The grading and drainage plan, this is number 1 from the motion last time. Does not, the grading and drainage plan provided does not show existing and proposed topography or grading quantities. So we need to see that.
We were in plan.
The landscape compliance statement needs to be on the plans. That was number 5. Regarding number 11, the door and window comments. So we have apparently the board is accepting of the vinyl as a window, but it needs to be recessed into the wall as opposed to a nail-on.
Okay.
And show a deeper plaster return.
Okay.
The first and second floor plans do not coordinate with one another, nor with the elevations, so those need to be cleaned up and clarified. Do you have a comment about the pampas grass?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I did. No pampas grass shall be allowed to be used on the project. As a rule, no invasives are typically allowed within the city.
Okay.
And then I had it. Keep going.
I was just going to add that the door detail should match the window details, so that the plaster should also return and the door be recessed.
Okay.
And that the parapet detail, well, how do board members feel about the parapet detail? It shows a exposed copper cap. You okay with that? As opposed to plaster wrapping over. So you can eliminate this.
Oh, I thought
this
it was
sheet
tile.
metal.
I thought it was tile.
On the elevations, it shows as tile.
Yeah, okay, so the detail, the parapet detail shown on number 3 on A901 should indicate a tile cap on the parapet with no exposed sheet metal.
Okay.
And the next time we review the project, we'd like to see at least a preliminary structural design that shows framing plans. And do we have a roof plan?
Yes.
Where was that? There it is. Okay. And you're missing dimensions here. So the adding to the floor plan comment that they should be fully dimensioned.
Okay.
Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion, and I'd like to add one other little thing. Where you are attempting to change the proportion of your elevations, rather than just changing the slope of the roof, I would like to see that all slopes are the same. If you pick a 3 and 12, it's a 3 and 12. Just have to make the building taller to bring up.
Okay, so all roof slopes should be the same.
Okay. Yes.
And there was no motion, it was just summary, so what's the motion?
The motion is for the applicant to.
Indefinite continuance.
They're asking for PDA, right? Is this a?
Yes.
Yes,
So I do not think this is ready for PDA.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
And so I would ask that the applicant return with more complete drawings that are coordinated, upstairs, downstairs, dimensions, and that you have had a preliminary discussion with your structural engineer, how to frame this building, and what's going to happen to this building when you start to frame it.
Okay, so it's a
It's continued.
indefinite continuance to the full
Okay,
board.
thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Is it possible to make?
Hold on a second, sorry. I'll give you a chance to comment. What's this?
Under discussion.
Yes.
I noted that they're requesting a waiver of the parking design standards.
That's from transportation.
Did we look at that before?
It's been on the.
It's been on the plans,
It's been on there
right?
ever
So
since
that
time.
didn't change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So we have a motion. I don't think we had a second. Someone like to second it?
I'll second it.
Second by Stephanie. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Under discussion also to get your drainage plan.
That was part of the motion.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
What did you want to say?
Yes, I understood we're supposed to match existing. Is there any truth to that?
Well, it's a little more subtle than that because you started out with a very contemporary design, and we asked you to
No, I
have
understand.
to come with a design that was more in keeping with the front building.
Yes.
But then at the same time, we didn't want you to just copy what was there, right? We wanted you to come up with something that was sympathetic, but not just a copy.
Okay.
So,
Because they have, that front house has windows that don't share that detail, but they're nail-ons, but they have a little stucco reveal.
well, see, that's a problem. We get that's an issue that, especially with vinyl windows,
Well,
is
it's
if
not any
they
different
sit
from
right on the surface and you just have this tiny little stucco, that's not a recess, just a
No, I
tiny little
understand,
return.
I
Okay.
understand. And with respect to the drainage plan, we went with your authority here is something that, as the ABR document reads, allows you to make that judgment, but it also allows for the planning to also make that. We took the effort of meeting with Mr. Limon with respect to the grading plan, and we understood we met those conditions.
Well,
We just need to develop them further, I suppose.
I think there was a miscommunication there then, because we can't really, just showing drainage arrows, we can't determine whether you're really meeting the criteria. We can't determine whether you might need a little retaining wall in the back or not. That's maybe not shown on your plan yet. And you can't determine that. No one can determine it unless you have that information. And we're just asking to just see it on the plan.
All right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Can I ask a few questions?
I'll tell you what, we're supposed to break for dinner, so I'm going to go ahead and close because we finished with this project, but I'll speak to you afterwards if you like.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to take a.
Did we vote?
Yes, we did vote.
Sorry.
We did vote.
Voted?
Yep.
If we didn't, I say aye.
Overly hungry.
Yeah, 20-minute break for dinner. Sorry, folks.
Alameda Padre Sarah. I'm Tom Oxner, project architect.
Jeff Yardy, landscape architect.
Welcome. So we have comments from last time. We'll just go through those one by one. Thank you. Study the deck rails on the second floor and third floors. The majority of the board was in favor of original deck rail designs.
Should we do that one by one? Or just go right
Yes,
down the
please,
list?
yeah.
Right, let's see here. So, here we go. So what we did was we lowered the plastered rail down to, what is that, 32? And then the balance of it, we're creating a two-layered iron rail to kind of give that consistency with the guardrails around the perimeter of the building. Of course, that follows around on all of the sides, including the south elevation.
Yeah, that looks better. Number 2, study simplifying the elevations, particularly the south elevation.
Yeah, the south elevation, there was a chimney that we just completely got rid of here. And then we took the downspouts and literally cut them in half, if not more than that.
Okay.
And let's see, I think in terms of the north elevation, really just a handle of the downspouts there. So that was really what we focused on.
Okay. Number 3, study relocating the trash enclosure to a less visible location.
You know, we looked at that, and what we concluded was that we would conceal it. So what we did, the 2 trash enclosures here are plastered, and there's a decorative concrete cap so that it encloses it. And in this case, the doors open up to Unit A, and the same thing. This trash enclosure is partially tucked below the stairway, as well as it has the same concrete lid on it.
Okay. Color board? And cut sheets for light fixtures.
So the colors, what we're looking to do is a monochromatic tile, the Redland Sandcast. So it has a little bit of texture to it. It's a 2-piece mission tile. And the body would be this off-white, and the wood would all be solid stained in that color there. And then this is a light that I've used many times. It's got a concealed light source up in the hood, and it downlights, and I think it would work here.
Okay. Downspouts covered, and CEQA was read in. I think that's covered. Okay. Any questions from the board? Or comments? I'll go into comments if there's no questions.
Can I,
Yeah.
So mostly doors. We got some windows. Here we go.
can we lose one of these
We could.
to wrap it in?
Yeah.
So a little tighter?
That's a good comment. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Well,
On all of them. This is just kind of.
Yeah, no, in
This-
fact, I was wondering why you have this flat surface at all? Why not just return the plaster right to the window?
Well, because the nail fin,
Is a
I like
certain
to keep
length?
the nail fin, and for the integrity of the. So it's nail fins are typically a little deeper, from what I've experienced, than 1-2 inch and a half. So,
But couldn't you fill that?
We could fill that.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Oh, I see.
Is
Yeah.
just bring this out so the plaster comes and
Yeah.
dies like that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
On all
So
the,
that
all the
that would
windows
apply.
and doors?
All the windows and doors, yeah.
Yeah.
What page is that?
A9-3 and 9-4.
The plaster. Yeah.
You have any parapets other than the ones with the railing on them? No, no parapets.
Is this a plaster surround? Or
I
is that
believe
a-
that's a recess. Isn't that a
Oh.
recess?
Oh,
Let's
okay.
look on the floor
Okay.
plan. I think so.
Is there a chimney detail?
I was looking for this sloped sill detail.
Oh, yeah. That's on next page here.
Oh, there it is.
There it is,
Okay.
yeah.
Typical. All right. That's it. We want to keep that.
Tom, do you have a chimney detail?
I think I do. Let's take a look here.
Put that back to the beginning.
I'm sorry.
See one?
Is there one more?
No, those are windows and doors.
Is that it?
Typical chimney cap.
There we go.
There we go.
Are we studying the details at this time?
We are. And we're in questions, if you have any.
You guys studied the details last time it came through?
No.
Oh,
Not
this
really.
is the
At
first
least I
time you're
didn't.
seeing them? Because this was here just a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, April 22nd.
So you're looking for a final today. Okay, comments from the board?
I think the project's
Stephanie?
ready for final. I have no other comments. Except for the door and window details that we talked about. Which,
Which details?
the door and window.
You talk about the thresholds, the door thresholds?
No, talked about the return of the plaster straight in rather than having the face of the plaster show.
Okay.
Courtney?
I don't have any comments.
Okay. Amy?
I agree with Stephanie for final approval and the adjusting that detail on the door and windows.
Okay. Howard?
I agree with that as well. I do have some additional comments about the door thresholds on 9.3, A 9.3.
Okay.
And if you look carefully at those, they really are kind of shapes, but they don't really, that isn't how they fit. For example, the threshold, let's take a detail 2, threshold is shown with this very large drop down onto the stone paver. There's no gap, there's no place to waterproof underneath the threshold. Yes, behind it, but not underneath. And a wood doesn't come like that. I mean, door thresholds don't come like that. You'd have to custom make every threshold in order to do that. So I would ask that you would study your door threshold details and get it so that you don't have the 1-inch gap. You can bring the porch stone right up underneath and get a little sealant in there.
Yeah, they're not going to build it like that, but absolutely, it should be illustrated better. Yeah.
And then detail 6, for example, the threshold is completely cavitated by the fact that all this flashing and the sheet metal underneath it is eating up most of the thickness of the threshold. So I would study that one as well. I'd study all of them, but anyway, they're there, but just kind of study them a little bit.
Okay, so we have two, this would be a final approval, to return on consent with some detailed revisions, restudying the thresholds on A9.3 and the both door and window plaster returns at the head and jamb to be a direct return back to the window, as noted on A9.4 window 2.
And 2 week or week 1 week continuance, if that works for you.
As soon as, as
Okay.
early as possible.
Can you?
What was that again?
1 week continuance back to consent with the revised details.
We are getting wood sash and frame?
Yes, I believe so. They're, you said wood,
Metal clad, they're wood with exterior metal clad.
Okay,
yes.
that's fine.
So who's making that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Seconded by Howard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for waiting. My set, yeah, thank
It's
you.
set up for next.
I have my set, so if you want to take it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
3925 State Street. The new item, concept review, alterations to an existing commercial building at the 5 Points Shopping Center. Homer Carl's Jr. and Green Burrito.
Those have, yeah, this is a one-time concept review, that's what he said. So how are those different from these?
Included the showing the parking, how we changed the parking.
Oh,
and that kind of
okay.
stuff. For your comments that you sent me today.
Yeah.
Changed it again?
Alterations include new awnings,
Yeah, they wanted some
entries,
more information.
window replacements, and roof change from mansard to parapet wall and cap. 20 parking spaces will be converted. to compact parking. Total number will remain unchanged.
Good evening. Joe Androlitis with Colonel Androlitis Architects with Rogelio Solis and Martha Pegasus. You guys are probably familiar with this project. We recently just completed some parking lot improvements to the area and got it all up to Tier 3 stormwater management requirements. And the goal for Regency, who owns the shopping center, was to always remodel the Carl's Jr. at some point. So luck would have it that their lease is due in August, and they decided not to renew their lease. So we're looking at remodeling this building for 2 future restaurant uses. Right now, it's actually the Green Burrito and Carl's Jr. So currently, you know, it's an old, I think it was built in the 70s, big mansard roof, typical kind of, you know, Carl's Jr. or fast food joint that you've seen all throughout Southern California. So we just want to simply remodel and kind of give it a makeover so it feels like it was part of the shopping center. So we're not trying to make a huge statement with the building, just a really simple transformation so that it feels more in place with what's around there. So basically, one of the issues that, as far as for a tenant is concerned, is that the existing ceiling height is 9'8" throughout the entire building. So it's hard to lease for new tenants. So we're going to look at basically dismantling the front third of the building and raising the roof, removing the mansard roof, as you can see, keeping the exterior walls, and just adding height to them, and then relocating probably some of the existing trusses to a higher elevation. So here's the existing ceiling framing system, and then this would be the new portion that we're remodeling in the front. So front of street elevation, we're looking to get 2 identities for the 2 tenants, so they're basically at each corner. This we got just 3 simple arches with a gable roof, and then this is a kind of a tower element with an arched opening, a taller storefront with a hip roof. If you look at these detailing, they're kind of similar to what you see throughout the center, so we kind of kept it simple. On the side, what you'll see are 2 outdoor seating areas that we're proposing currently. Currently, this whole eastern side of the building is for outdoor seating. You probably have seen the umbrellas out there with the chairs or the tables. And then in the new proposal, we're looking at basically only taking half of it here and then doing another half here for each tenant. And we're reconfiguring the parking so that we can allow for this space that's connected to the restaurant. They would like to serve drinks out here, beer and wine possibly, so the outdoor spaces need to be connected to the restaurant spaces to allow for that. This parking has been eliminated here, and numerous compact spaces have been provided to allow the current parking count to remain. I don't know if you're aware, but when we did the parking remodel, we actually ended up adding 21 spaces. So we're actually 5 spaces over what's required by zoning. Other improvements include re-landscaping the front portion and part of the back portion.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, this is all lawn, so you can imagine that's would be a nice change. And then there's some mounding going on there, so I'll let Martha talk about that when we get there.
And usually outdoor dining spaces here.
The rest of the walls are just simple. It's just a simple parapet wall with some detailing at the corner and a little tile detail at the top. And then some basic window fenestrations around the sides with some awnings. Simple detailing on the trellis. So just here to get your initial comments, make sure we're heading in the right direction, and then I'll let Martha chime in about what we're proposing for the landscaping.
So, as Joe mentioned, in the front currently there's a lawn and some prominent and healthy sycamore trees, California sycamore trees. So we're proposing to retain those sycamores, and in place of the lawn, just continue some of the palette that we have on the rest of the center, which is drought tolerant. Bird of paradise, you can see in this kind of bigger star-shaped symbol, and then aloe spinosissima, which is a low clumping aloe plant, blooms orange in the wintertime. And then we've got some cordylines or dracaenas, Australian dracaenas for accents, a little bit of clivia or South African lily on the north exposure for perennial. And then on the ground plane, again, continuing the plant palette that we have on State Street and throughout the center, ground cover, natal plum in this area, cotoneaster, just low-growing, dark green ground cover, and then Dianella called Tasman flax lily. It's kind of a blue tone to the leaves with a strap leaf plant. So just a simple kind of swaths of alternating ground cover. The existing monument sign is shown here, so we're allowing visibility of that sign from both sides as it has now, and then some existing boulders that we would retain. We're adding one tree, which is, bear with me, a coral tree on that corner, the Coralloides, so a little bit smaller because the sycamores are quite large and skyline trees, so we're just adding that as the accent at the driveway. And sort of a similar palette in the back, but with the addition of the shrub bottle brush in the rear, and some Nandina or heavenly bamboo, and then Boston ivy on the trash or the wall, the concealing trash enclosure walls. That's about sums it up. Oh, and one jacaranda that would match with the jacaranda kind of cater corner at the Saigon restaurant just across the parking lot.
All right. I assume that concludes your presentation.
That concludes my presentation.
Here's, I brought some images of the existing shopping center to remind you what kind of detailing that you see throughout the center.
Kurt, can you move those to the camera?
All right. So we'll look for public comments. Seeing none, we'll go to questions from the board. Want to start?
Sure. I only have two. Is there going to be another monument sign besides this one? Second? Since there are two
The current sign actually has both tenants
okay.
displayed on the sign, so it'd probably be the same.
Is the trellis wood?
Trellis would be wood to match what you see on the shopping center.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Courtney.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Amy.
No questions.
Howard.
Yes, the outdoor dining areas 1 and 2. I see that they are with column pilasters and then trellis, and you show in your elevations wrought iron. Are those actually closed off so you can't exit from those things? You have to go through the building to go exit?
Correct.
And that would be on both sides. Same treatment, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Comments? Stephanie.
I think it's very well done. Remodel of very dated architecture. Very nice update to the shopping center and very much in keeping with the design and architecture of the Five Point Shopping Center.
Okay. Courtney.
I agree with Stephanie's comments.
All right. Amy.
Yeah, I agree also. I don't have any additional comments.
Okay. Howard.
I agree, but I have an additional comment. These wrought iron railings, I mean, there are different ways of making railings and so forth, but I'm wondering if those little courtyards, patios, might be better served by having a wall that is the same height as your wainscot line.
Mhm.
And a solid wall to kind of keep it private, and so the wind doesn't blow leaves through there. And when you're out there, it's you're in the place. If you have to have a door to get out, then maybe then you could have iron gate or something, or iron gate. But that's just a suggestion. It's a comment.
Okay, do you want to make that a motion, Howard?
I move.
No,
It's just
comments only.
comments only.
Okay, so you can
I'll
still
make
make
the
a
comment.
motion.
It's comment.
Yeah. So would you like to make a motion?
Indefinite.
Motion to continue it indefinitely, but no approval.
What she said.
Indefinite continuance, back to full
Indefinite
board.
continuance, come back to full board with board consensus is they like the project.
Great.
Keep moving.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Oh, so we need a second? Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Great.
Thanks a lot, guys.
We are done for the evening. Thank you all for your time and interest. Concludes our board meeting for this evening.